Chapter 862. Gu Qingshan stroked the jade gourd in her hand, carefully sensing the thought coming from it. Hungry? He asked in surprise. I've never heard of a treasure feeling hungry before. Gongzi, what's wrong with this jade gourd? Shanu asked. Shanu, have you ever been hungry? Gu Qingshan asked. Never, I'm the spirit of the Six Paths Great Mountain. I don't need food or drink, Shanu replied. Gu Qingshan nodded, then asked. This jade gourd might have been left here for too long, it told me it was hungry. Shanu, if you don't have any power to replenish yourself for a long time, would you need something? Shanu replied. I wouldn't. The Six Paths Great Mountain is the manifestation of the great power that protects the world. As long as the Divine Mountain exists, I will have the power of the Divine Mountain. I don't need anything else to replenish myself. Gu Qingshan looked down at the jade gourd and asked, What do you want to eat? Xiao, the jade gourd moved a bit and gave off a faint sound. An invisible gust of wind circled around the gourd, then quickly faded away. Gu Qingshan's expression changed. This is a supernatural phenomenon manifested by soul point. Does this jade gourd need soul points? Right at this time, 2 lines of glowing text appeared on the war god Ui frowny face jade gourd. Adorable desires some soul points. Are you willing to pay 100 soul points to help it nourish its avatar? Seeing that it was only 100 soul points, Gu Qingshan directly transferred the soul points in his body into the jade gourd. He had been in contact with soul points ever since he was Qi training realm, and now, he didn't need to rely on the system and could use soul points on his own. Receiving the soul points, the jade gourd let out a satisfied sound. Then it stopped moving. It stopped moving? Gu Qingshan looked at Shanu with a questioning expression. What's going on with it? It's asleep. I can sense that it's entering a deep state of recovery, Shanu replied. Gu Qingshan was surprised. Perhaps because it had been through so many years, the jade gourd needed to slowly recover its power. Gu Qingshan put away the jade gourd. Let's go, Shanu, there's nothing else on this floor that suits me. Let's go to the next floor, Gu Qingshan said. Yes, Shanu replied. They flew onto the teleportation formation and left this floor. 35th floor. Gu Qingshan and Shanu appeared at the same time. This was the second to last level of the entire hidden treasure temple. According to his observations along the way, the higher the floor, the fewer treasures there were, and the more precious they were. There were only 4 high platforms on the 35th floor. 2 of the platforms were already empty, leaving only the other 2 with items on them. Gu Qingshan pondered for a moment and understood. The burly man and the white-haired old man actually had the ability to enter this place a long time ago. It was very likely that they had taken the 2 items here. As for the other 2 platforms, there was an ancient zither and a huge copper hammer. The zither was giving off a faint melody that made people recall the past, but the more they thought about it, the more immersed they became. It took Gu Qingshan 1 breath's worth of time to escape from it. Even so, his back was already covered in a layer of cold sweat. If he continued to be controlled by the zither's melody, he might not be able to free himself from it and become lost in his memories. Gu Qingshan became cautious and ignored the zither. He walked in front of the copper hammer. This was a 5-meter-long giant hammer. It was impossible to imagine what kind of person would use such a large weapon. But as soon as Gu Qingshan stood in front of the hammer, a jade tag appeared from the void of space and slowly fell into Gu Qingshan's hand. Scanning it with his inner sight, Gu Qingshan quickly understood the value of this copper hammer. This was a soul artifact. Within the 900 million world layers, soul artifacts were supreme treasures that would cause a storm of blood whenever they appeared. In the past, when Lola randomly threw out a soul artifact, the progenitor fiendess immediately agreed to Gu Qingshan's cooperation plan. It could be seen just how valuable a soul artifact was. To activate a soul artifact, one must use soul points. Wait a minute. Could it be, the jade gourd pendant I obtained was also a soul artifact? But the jade gourd pendant seems to have fallen asleep, so I can't communicate with it. Gu Qingshan temporarily stopped thinking and lightly placed his hand on the copper hammer. Lines of glowing text appeared on the War God UI without any signs of fatigue. Frowny face bygone era artifact. World Destroyer Hammer. 16 high-leveled cultivators need to infuse their soul points to activate this hammer. Swinging the World Destroyer Hammer and hitting the ground will destroy the world. A small world requires 21 strikes to destroy the earth, water, fire, and wind elements of the small world. A middle-sized world requires 36 strikes. A large-sized world requires 81 strikes. Gu Qingshan waved his hand. Shanu, come and try this. Since I've been recognized by the Jade Gourd Pendant as its master, Shanu now has the right to choose what she wants. It's best to keep such a terrifying weapon in my hands to prevent some lunatic from taking it away. Not to mention, this is a power that can destroy a world. If used well, it might have miraculous effects. Shanu walked forward and grabbed the long handle of the hammer. Bam! Her hand was immediately knocked away. What's going on? Gu Qingshan asked. Gongzi, it's not possible, a unique secret technique is needed to use it, Shanu replied. Gu Qingshan sighed in relief. If that's the case, I don't have to worry anymore. Not bad, the humans of the bygone era finally did something reliable. Let's go, there's nothing on this floor that I can use. Let's go to the last floor, Gu Qingshan said. I wonder what kind of treasure is on the last floor, Shanu curiously asked. Gu Qingshan smiled. Regardless of what it is, Xie Guhong must have taken the technique to release the phantom images. Why is that? Shanu asked. Gu Qingshan replied. Phantom images are countless fragments of parallel spacetime. Other than the bygone era humanity, who else could create such an unimaginable spacetime technique? Shanu thought for a bit and nodded. The two of them flew into the warp formation and left the 35th floor. The 36th floor. This was the final floor of the entire Taoist temple. Outside the warp formation, the entire floor was completely empty, almost as if there was nothing at all. The only thing that remained were two tall platforms at the very center of the floor. Gu Qingshan and Shanu flew over, only to see that one of the platforms no longer had anything on it, while the other only had a jade bottle with a wide mouth and a long neck. Gu Qingshan and Shanu exchanged glances. This scene was so simple that it didn't fit their expectations at all. Gu Qingshan first walked up to the jade bottle. A jade tag appeared from the void of space. Gu Qingshan's inner sight seeped into it and quickly understood the meaning of this jade bottle. Anyone could open the jade bottle. The jade bottle would automatically sense the cultivation of the person who opened it and give them a bygone-era realm breaker pill of the corresponding level. The bygone-era realm breaker pill was a very practical item that could help a cultivator break through to the next realm. Although this pill was miraculous, a cultivator could only use one in their entire life. For this jade bottle in front of them, if the person who opened the bottle was a chaotic star realm cultivator, a bygone-era realm breaker restoration pill would definitely fly out and fall into their hands. If a chaotic star realm cultivator ate this pill, they would immediately break through to origin realm. If the person who opened the bottle was a 3000 worlds realm cultivator, a bygone-era realm breaker pill would appear in the bottle. The cultivator would immediately break through to Paragon realm. This was already set up so that each person could only take one. Taking more would result in immediate expulsion from this world. Shanu also finished reading the description in the jade tag. Gongzi? She appeared glad. Go ahead, Gu Qingshan nodded. Since Xie Guhong had already taken the item on the other platform, Shanu could only take one realm breaker pill. Shanu walked up and opened the lid of the jade bottle. A pill emitting layers of auspicious light suddenly flew out of the jade bottle. Shanu caught the pill and flicked it with her finger. As soon as the pill fell into Gu Qingshan's hand, it bounced up and was about to fly into his mouth. Gu Qingshan hurriedly caught the pill and put it into a jade box. Right now, Gu Qingshan didn't dare to eat it. With how low his cultivation was, as soon as this pill entered his mouth, he wouldn't be able to handle the medicinal effects and would die from the overflowing spirit energy destroying his meridians. Gu Qingshan carefully put the jade box into his inventory bag. Zhao Wuzong was a Void Revolution Realm cultivator. In other words, only when I reach Void Revolution Realm would I be able to use this Realm Breaker pill to immediately break through to 3000 Worlds Realm. This was completely unimaginable, but for the bygone era's pill-making technology, it was already possible to reach this step. The Jade Pendant Adorable and the Realm Breaker pill are both good items. Our harvest this time was quite good. Gu Qingshan asked. Do you want to return now? Shanu asked. Gu Qingshan remained silent without moving. Gongzi? Shanu doubtfully asked. I truly admire Shifu for being able to resist the temptation of breaking through to Paragon Realm and take away the Phantom Image technique, Gu Qingshan said. But I still want to confirm something. He walked to another high platform and quickly stood under it. A jade tag appeared from the void of space. This jade tag also recorded the information of the treasures placed on the platform. As Gu Qingshan scanned it with his inner sight, the information on the jade tag quickly appeared in his mind: frowny face, enemy-killing swordsmanship. This is the essence of the enemy-killing swordsmanship, the culmination of all the techniques and essentials of humanity's swordsmanship cultivation, exquisite beyond compare. Gu Qingshan froze. What? It's a sword technique and not a phantom image technique? Then. Chapter 863. Gu Qingshan was stunned for a while. This was the most unlikely part of my deduction. But it was precisely here that something unexpected happened. Xie Gu Hong took the bygone era sword technique, not the phantom image technique. Where exactly did the phantom image technique come from? If it was the desolate race, or even the true gods of the eternal abyss, why would they give such a powerful technique to a human? It seems there are still a lot of variables in this era that I haven't noticed yet. Gu Qingshan stood in front of the floating jade tag and fell into thought. He once again scanned the jade tag with his inner sight. Enemy-killing sword technique. Why does this name sound so familiar? Gu Qingshan muttered and tried to recall. He suddenly put his hand on his inventory bag and began to search through it. The target he was looking for was so huge that he found it almost instantly. A large-sized jade tag. This was a gift from Xie Gu Hong. Xie Gu Hong had recorded everything he had learned in his entire life into this jade tag. Gu Qingshan had skimmed through the contents of this jade tag, so he had a vague impression of the name enemy-killing sword technique. However, the name enemy-killing sword technique was a bit too simple, and the requirements to learn it were too high, so I didn't pay much attention to it after a single glance. Who would have thought that this would be a sword technique from the bygone era? The bygone era. What kind of sword techniques were they from that era? Gu Qingshan couldn't wait to find this sword technique. Next to this swordsmanship, Xie Gu Hong had already written a note. This is an unimaginable swordsmanship. After pondering it for a long time, I understood one thing. With my attainments in swordsmanship, I still need a few more leaps of improvement before I can gain anything from this swordsmanship. Gu Qingshan was speechless. Even Xie Gu Hong hasn't learned this sword technique yet. No, it's not that he hasn't learned it, it's that he hasn't been able to learn it yet. Gu Qingshan shook his head. Full of respect, he sent his inner sight into the part of the jade tag that contained the enemy-killing sword technique. He did everything he could to try and comprehend the enemy-killing sword technique. A few moments later, as expected, he couldn't understand it at all. Gu Qingshan was unwilling to give up and glanced at the war god UI. Lines of glowing text had already appeared on the war god UI. Enemy-killing sword technique. This is an ancient sword technique, used to end everything. Since your level is too low, you are temporarily unable to comprehend this sword technique well. To use soul points to comprehend this swordsmanship, you will need to pay 100,000 soul points. Gu Qingshan counted the zeros and cleared her throat. Shanu, let's go. Shanu was reading the jade tag that introduced the enemy-killing sword style. Young master, this sword technique is probably very powerful, she said. Gu Qingshan stiffly replied. Who would have thought that Palace Master Xie would give up on the Realm Breaker pill and choose this bygone-era sword technique instead, Shanu commented. Gu Qingshan replied. Let's go back and find Palace Master Xie and think of a way to make him teach you this sword technique, Shanu suggested. Gu Qingshan stopped and spoke with a serious expression. Shanu, even my Shifu wasn't able to cultivate this sword technique. I don't want to become a sword cultivator that's too ambitious. What do you mean, young master? Before I surpass Shifu, I won't cultivate this sword technique. Gongzi is such a steadfast person, Shanu praised. Let's not talk about it anymore, let's go. Yes, young master. Gu Qingshan took out a warp talisman and infused it with spirit energy. His entire body disappeared from the 36th floor and was instantly transported out. The desolate world. In the wilderness that was completely made up of magic stones. An underground cavern. Gu Qingshan appeared. When he came, there were a total of 4 people here, but only Xie Guhong and Gu Qingshan were left. The white-haired old man and the burly man were both subordinates of the eternal true God. They had betrayed humanity. Xie Guhong received the twin swords heaven and earth forging method from the white-haired old man, as well as the enemy-killing sword technique. He had also left. The only person left here was Gu Qingshan. He released his inner sight to observe the surroundings. On the ground outside the cavern, there was still an endless horde of monsters, filling up the path leading to the depths of the desolate world. There weren't any particularly powerful monsters among the outermost circle of monsters. But the closer one got to the city wall, the more terrifying the monsters became. This was a sea of monsters created by the Lord of Desolation, no, the Soul Shrieker. Without shadow origin power, no one would be able to pass through. Gu Qingshan thought for a bit, slowly left the cavern, and stood behind a hidden rock slope. He opened his hand and looked at it. A coin appeared in his hand. This was the coin the figure of light gave him. It could only be used once to return to the sky beyond heaven of the primordial heaven realm at any time. Gu Qingshan stayed silent for a few moments. System, do you still need soul points? He asked. Ting. The war god system responded with a clear chime. Of course, the more soul points the better. Gu Qingshan nodded. He didn't ask the system what he needed soul points for, so he simply hid behind the rock slope and silently waited. A few moments later, his expression suddenly changed. An intense noise resounded between heaven and earth. The chaotic tides were about to arrive. This was the result of the demon stone's accumulated power reaching its peak. The chaotic and expanding power of the various elements mixed together and erupted at the same time. The monsters became irritated. They no longer looked around and simply stayed close to the ground, afraid that they would be affected by the chaotic tides. There were all sorts of powers within the chaotic tides. If they were hit by a power that could counter them, it would be a disaster. Gu Qingshan's eyes lit up. He silently formed a sword seal. The Chao Yin sword and 6 Paths Great Mountain sword both appeared from the void of space. Go, he shouted. The 2 swords let out a woo-woo sound as they flew towards the sea of monsters. The first monster was beheaded by the Chao Yin sword. It even let out a shrill scream before it died. But the chaotic tides were so loud that its scream couldn't travel very far before it was drowned out by the loud noise. All the monsters were busy fighting against the chaotic tides, so they didn't have time to care about the situation of other monsters. Taking this chance, Gu Qingshan silently used the various secret arts and unleashed his spirit energy like it was free. The two swords spun around, blood filled the sky. The entire stretch of the wilderness was like a bountiful harvest field, allowing the two swords to reap the lives of the monsters within. At a certain point, a clang was heard. The Chao Yin sword flew back while spinning. It was hit by a strange power. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask, "Are you okay?" The Chao Yin sword let out a woo-woo sound, turned into a streak of light, and continued to slash at the monsters. Gu Qingshan observed for a while. The Chao Yin sword was occasionally hit. But the Six Paths Great Mountain Sword had the properties of invincible and lawbreaker. So it wasn't affected by any power and continued to slash at the monsters without stopping. Gu Qingshan decided to throw the frost blade out as well, casually unleashing large-scale Yoi frost spells. Finally, the screams of the monsters overwhelmed the sound of the chaotic tides. On one hand, it was because Gu Qingshan was killing them too fiercely. On the other hand, it was because the chaotic tides were slowly ending. A few extremely powerful desolate monsters noticed Gu Qingshan's ambush, so they were escaping from their fear of the chaotic tides and were rushing towards them from the wilderness. Roar! The angry roars of the monsters rose one after another. It's about time. If I keep killing, I'll be in big trouble. Gu Qingshan waved his hand. The blade and sword returned and disappeared into the void of space behind him. A coin appeared in Gu Qingshan's hand. The coin gave off a faint glow. In a split second, Gu Qingshan disappeared without a trace. He appeared in the grand divine palace of the sky beyond heaven. The figure of light was standing guard here. Luo Bingli was still working on the jade disc. As soon as Gu Qingshan returned, both the man and the god noticed. Luo Bingli didn't say anything, only lowered his gaze and continued to work on the jade disc. The figure of light came forward and couldn't help but ask, "How was it? Did your Majesty the Divine King discover any secrets?" "Of course, I found out everything." While saying that, Gu Qingshan gestured for the other party to remain calm. He also glanced at the war god Ui. Chapter 864. A series of glowing text hovered at the center of the war god Ui. This was the summary of the battle from before Frownyface. Through this battle, you've obtained a total of 7,651 soul points. Your remaining soul points is as Gu Qingshan glanced over. A little over 10,000 soul points wasn't much in the past. But now, the war god Ui takes a lot of soul points each time, so any desolate monster I kill would only give me a few dozen or so soul points. That's why Gu Qingshan was already very satisfied with this much soul points. What can I do with 10,000 soul points? I can't do anything else, but I can find a cultivation scripture from the scriptures Xie Gu Hong gave me, comprehend it, cultivate for a few more days, and try to break through the final barrier and become a decent Void Wanderer realm cultivator. Gu Qingshan silently sighed. Unfortunately, after I turned into the god of frost and chill, one thing after another happened after another. I had to deal with them with everything I had, so I didn't have the time to cultivate. While these thoughts took a long time to describe, it only took one breath's worth of time for Gu Qingshan to think about it in the outside world. "Your Divine Majesty, what are you thinking about?" the figure of light asked. "I'm thinking about how to face the real enemy," Gu Qingshan sighed. This time, it was a real sigh. After all, an entity like the Soul Shrieker was hard for anyone to deal with. The real enemy? What do you mean? The figure of light was even more confused. That's right, the Lord of Desolation isn't really much. While saying that, Gu Qingshan was silently thinking about how to phrase it. After a bit of thought, the figure of light understood what Gu Qingshan meant. It seems the Divine King really did find something. The figure of light became spirited and asked, "Your Divine Majesty, during your trip to the desolate world, what exactly did you find?" The Lord of Desolation wasn't the cause of our divine race's decline. In fact, the entire desolate race was being manipulated, Gu Qingshan replied. In front of the figure of light, he told her everything that happened in the Taoist temple. Of course, she couldn't tell him about the awakening of the human army, nor about the Devil King Warden Rod. Gu Qingshan could only tell him that she used the power of the divine race to interrogate the old man. As the divine king, the god of frost and chill's power had already reached the peak of Paragon realm. No matter how undying the white-haired old man was, he was only a void-wanderer human expert. He was nothing before a god-king. Hearing Gu Qingshan's explanation, the figure of light was speechless for a while. Luo Bingli also pursed her lips, as if recalling something from the past. She lowered her head without saying a word. Winds of chaotic tribulation. Eternal abyss. Taiwei city wall. The desolate race was being manipulated. Terrifying true deity. Soul Shrieker and the shocking truth. The twin swords heaven and earth were only components of a single weapon from the eternal abyss. The figure of light looked at Gu Qingshan. If that's the case, then everything makes sense. We never thought that the truth of history would be like this. He spoke in a hoarse voice. Such a shocking secret had always been hidden by the desolate race within the Taiwei city wall, never to be discovered by the remaining divine race. But today, the truth of history was revealed by a divine king who existed in a fragment of a parallel universe. Gu Qingshan asked, "You are the collective will of the old gods, the will of all the dead old gods and the remaining divine race. Do you have any way to deal with this situation?" The figure of light said nothing. The grand divine palace fell silent. Gu Qingshan waited for a while, then suddenly smiled. "That's true, but we can't even deal with the desolate race alone, let alone the undying eternal true God behind them." Saying so, he turned around, quickly walked up the stairs, and sat down on the divine throne. "Your divine majesty, you seem to be very calm," the figure of light commented. "What awaits our divine race is an irresistible despair. I have no way to deal with it either," Gu Qingshan replied. His gaze passed through the figure of light and looked at Luo Bingli. She kept her head down, still focused on crafting the jade disc without showing any expression of fear. Indeed, as a human expert, she was trying her best not to look at Gu Qingshan to avoid arousing the figure of light's suspicions. As that thought flashed through Gu Qingshan's mind, she turned her gaze back to the figure of light. In theory, after knowing such a huge secret, the figure of light should have immediately left this world to activate all of the preparations the old gods had prepared. But he didn't do anything. From the looks of it, the situation had already gone beyond the divine race's preparations and preparations. The preparations they made were only meant to deal with humanity. Want to fight against the eternal true God? That's impossible. In other words, the divine race had reached a state of despair and had to make a final decision. Gu Qingshan's expression was expressionless, both hands on the throne, seemingly immersed in his own world, thinking of a solution. In truth, he was only waiting to see what the figure of light would do. After a while of silence, the figure of light couldn't help but speak up. "How about we find the golden flame divinity?" He might. "No!" Gu Qingshan cut the figure of light off and spoke with a seemingly slow but actually fast tone. "The golden flame divinity only cares about his own future. I can't let him know the truth." "What do you mean, Your Majesty?" the figure of light asked. Gu Qingshan lowered her voice. "Think about it carefully. Once he knows everything, what would he consider first?" The figure of light replied. "He would use everything he knows to face the problem together with us. That's not the case if we bring an entity from the future with us, in the case of a crucial moment where we have to make a choice. For example, if he has to choose between saving us and killing Gu Qingshan, I believe he would definitely give up on us and kill Gu Qingshan, because Gu Qingshan is related to the future of his world. Furthermore, in the history we belong to, we are already dead. Not worth saving at all. He wouldn't do that. Not to mention, there shouldn't be such a coincidence in history," the figure of light replied. Gu Qingshan clenched her fist and looked at the figure of light. This king carries the fate of the entire divine race on his shoulders. I cannot take even the slightest risk. So what we need to discuss is what he would do if such a situation were to occur. The figure of light said nothing. Gu Qingshan continued. Unless he can prove that he holds goodwill towards the divine race of this era, only then will I be willing to share the secret of the eternal abyss with him. The figure of light thought for a bit more and said, Your Majesty, please release the golden flame divinity. I will take him to experience a few trials and see what kind of choice he would make. Gu Qingshan froze. What's going on? Could it be that the divine race is able to create a hidden fragment of the era within the phantom images? But there's no time to think about that right now. Gu Qingshan called out without changing her expression. Guards, 6 divine guards flew into the palace. Go, release the golden flame divinity, Gu Qingshan ordered. Understood, the divine guards received their orders and left. The figure of light bowed to Gu Qingshan. Your Majesty, I will be taking him with me. If the answer I receive is the same as what you said, I will return. Go, Gu Qingshan said. The figure of light left the grand divine palace. Only Gu Qingshan and Luo Bingli were left in the palace. It was now that Luo Bingli sent her voice to Gu Qingshan through inner sight. What were you thinking, telling such a big secret to the divine race? She doubtfully asked. They know about the Soul Shrieker's existence, that's why they've relaxed their pressure on humanity, Gu Qingshan replied. He stretched his back, looking a bit tired. That's right, during the entire journey to the desolate world, his mind had been highly focused, constantly dealing with any and all variables. Even someone like Gu Qingshan was exhausted. Luo Bingli thought for a bit, then asked, You also released the golden flame divinity. It's an entity that came from the future and knows everything. Are you really that careless to let the figure of light take it away? Gu Qingshan yawned. It's not careless, it's just that if you want to take first, you must first give. I don't understand, Luo Bingli replied. Don't worry, when the golden flame divinity makes his choice, they will definitely return. Why would they return? I'm the only divinity that discovered the truth of history, the only divinity that's currently changing the fate of the divine race, the only divine king to awaken in the countless phantom images. The figure of light wouldn't be willing to give up on an entity like me. Luo Bingli thought for a bit, then asked, If I was the golden flame divinity, I probably wouldn't save these divinities from the age of old and would only save my own future. But if the golden flame divinity doesn't think the same as you and I and actually saves these divinities, what then? Who cares, it's only a small matter. Gu Qingshan didn't mind at all. He even took out a bottle of liquor, poured himself a glass, and slowly drank from it on his throne. Luo Bingli looked at Gu Qingshan in shock, unable to understand what this person was thinking. Seeing his attitude, she really didn't want to ask, but this was such an important matter that she wouldn't feel assured if she didn't ask. This is good liquor, you've been working hard recently, do you want a glass? Gu Qingshan invited her. Gu Qingshan, this isn't a small matter, the golden flame divinity came from the future. Before Luo Bingli could finish her sentence, Gu Qingshan cut her off. So what? If he gives up on saving the divinities, the figure of light will naturally side with me, Luo Bingli pursued. What if he chooses to save the divinities from the age of old? What will you do then? That's even better. Since he's proven his loyalty to the divinities from the age of old, I'll have him work for the divinities from the age of old. Don't worry, this king will make good use of him, Gu Qingshan casually replied. He poured himself a glass of liquor, gave it to her, and said, I suggest that you rest a bit of liquor will help you relax even more, relax. Luo Bingli muttered and couldn't help but receive the glass. The clear liquid inside the glass was as pure and enchanting as amber. The eternal true God planned everything. He's also an invincible entity. Do you have a plan to deal with him now? Luo Bingli asked. Not yet, so we still have a lot of things to do from here on out. We need to relax a bit for now, otherwise we might make mistakes if our minds are too tense, Gu Qingshan replied. I actually feel like drinking alcohol would make mistakes, Luo Bingley commented. That's true, that's why we're only drinking the spirit fruit liquor brewed by the divinities this time. The ingredients for this liquor are all very rare, capable of boosting one's vigor, as well as giving off a unique fragrance that is hard to forget, so the recipe wasn't passed down to humanity. Gu Qingshan raised her glass, nodded to Luo Bingley, then downed it all at once. Seeing Gu Qingshan's expression, Luo Bingley suddenly realized something. They were currently in the palace of the divine race's monarch, drinking the liquor brewed by the divinities. Regardless of what the future holds, this moment has never happened before in the history of humanity. Luo Bingley put the glass in front of her lips and took a sip. Chapter 865. Gu Qingshan's Homeworld. The North Pole. The mountaintop cabin. He opened his eyes and looked around. There was only endless darkness around him. Countless whispers could be heard. Numerous consciousnesses seemed to be accompanying him, begging for him to release them. I want to kill. All of a sudden, a deafening electronic music resounded from the void of space. This music was so familiar that it drowned out all the other sounds and awakened his memories. This was the game he was most familiar with. This extreme electronic music came from the second stage of the game. When the most powerful monster appears, the music will play. It's very simple to defeat that monster. You only need to jump, attack, jump, dodge, then repeat the process while making sure to unleash your ultimate. All of a sudden, the music became distorted, then completely disappeared. What? How could someone fail such a simple test? He couldn't help but reach his hand out into the darkness. The coffin full of complicated patterns was opened. Yi Fei Li jumped out from the coffin. As soon as he saw his surroundings, he froze in place. A man wearing a black leather jacket was lying on the floor in front of the fireplace, sleeping soundly with an empty bottle of liquor in his hand. On the other side, a slim girl wearing black stockings and a short skirt with a pair of cat ears was facing away from him, trying her best to control the game controller in her hand. Let's get dressed first before we talk. TSK, after evolving once, your skin has become even fairer. The girl didn't even turn her head as she spoke. It was now that Yi Fei Li noticed that he wasn't wearing anything at all. He hurriedly looked around, only to see a set of clothes neatly arranged next to the coffin he was sleeping in. After quickly putting on his clothes, Yi Fei Li sat down next to the girl. Meow, call me Big Sis Meow. Ah, yes, Big Sis Meow, that stage just now, you wouldn't have been able to pass like that, Yi Fei Li sincerely said. He remembered that this cat-eared girl who exuded a pure and seductive aura was Meow from the Justice Iron Fist Club. I'm also a member of the club, a newcomer. Hearing that, Meow stuffed the controller into his hand and said, I'm almost out of HP, can I still pass now? Others might not be able to, but an expert like me can. Yi Fei Li cheered. Don't be ridiculous, I can pass such a simple stage even with my eyes closed. He took the controller and began to seriously control the character on the screen, trying to avoid the monster's attacks while looking for a chance to counterattack. A few seconds later, the character on the screen was hit again. His HP was completely depleted. Yi Fei Li scowled. This round is so embarrassing. However, he didn't have much HP left. If he took another hit, he would die. How could he embarrass himself in front of Sister Meow? I have to show my true strength. Yi Fei Yu Yi Yi of this. Correspondingly, countless terrifying blood-colored faces flashed in the void behind him. They wanted to pounce into his body, but they were always blocked by an invisible force, unable to get close at all. Yi Fei Li didn't seem to notice. Kitty stared intently at the screen, but its fingers were constantly moving, tossing the blood-red faces into the space vortex one after another. While snoring, Bali opened one of his eyes and coldly stared at those bloody faces. When a world destroyer evolves, they will split into endless evil desires, manifesting as dead souls that desire to take control of their body. If a world destroyer is controlled by a dead soul, they will lose their rationality and emotions, turning into a killing machine. A world destroyer will slaughter all living beings in the world, using the world's essence to evolve again and become a stronger apostle of destruction. Fortunately, Meow and Bali were here. They were protecting Yi Fei Li. Everything was going smoothly. Once Yi Fei Li's condition stabilizes, he'll be sent to the Tower of Infinite Worlds to train himself. Several 10,000 years ago, the primordial heaven realm, a certain phantom image of the current era, the sky beyond heaven, the grand divine palace, a conversation was going on. I still feel like you shouldn't drink too much alcohol, it's easy to mess things up, Luo Bingli cautiously said. She had already drunk 2 cups of liquor and was currently enjoying her third. Gu Qingshan drank an entire bottle of liquor, then took out a roasted chicken wrapped in a lotus leaf and lightly sniffed it with his eyes closed. How fragrant, he muttered. Hey, you're the divine king, if you eat a roasted chicken here, you'll be exposed when they return from the test, Luo Bingli reminded him. Seeing her serious expression and the cup in her hand, Gu Qingshan didn't mind. Tests have always been long, we have plenty of time, not to mention, no one would dare to trespass this place, Soul Shrieker Luo Bingli coldly replied. Gu Qingshan glanced at her. He gestured to her with the roasted chicken in his hand. Luo Bingli's imposing manner was destroyed, so she dejectedly replied, No, I'm not hungry. It was now that Gu Qingshan tore off a chicken leg and explained. At this point, the Soul Shrieker will only silently wait for the twin swords heaven and earth to be forged, it won't disturb the peace between the divine race and humanity. Saying so, he began to eat. Suddenly, his inventory bag shook a bit as the jade pendant adorable flew out by itself. The jade pendant hovered in front of Gu Qingshan, giving off a low chime. Xiao. At the same time, lines of glowing text appeared on the war god Yui. Jade pendant. Adorable requests you to provide it with 300 soul points. Gu Qingshan looked at her inventory bag in surprise, then at the jade pendant in front of her. My inventory bag was clearly closed. This jade gourd is able to freely come and go without being restrained by the law of space. Gu Qingshan reached her hand out, took the jade pendant, and sent it another 300 soul points. Receiving the soul points, the jade pendant happily chimed and flew back into the inventory bag. Gu Qingshan scanned it with her inner sight. The jade pendant had once again fallen silent inside the inventory bag. From the looks of it, it had fallen asleep again. Gu Qingshan lightly sighed. Eat and sleep and eat again? I'm so envious. A treasure from the bygone era should be reliable, right? If nothing else, I'll just treat it as a pet. While consoling herself, Gu Qingshan finished the roast chicken. He drank another bottle of liquor, then happily leaned back on his throne and began to digest his food. Seeing him like this, Luo Bingli speechlessly asked, So we're just going to stay here like this? Gu Qingshan asked, How's the jade disc going? The hardest parts have all been completed. I can complete them at any time if I want to, Luo Bingli replied. In other words, we can leave at any time we want, Gu Qingshan said. That's right, we can leave right away, if you want to give up on becoming the divine king, Luo Bingli replied. Do you think I should give up? Gu Qingshan asked. I don't know what's the point of continuing, you can go search for the heaven sword right now, Luo Bingli stared at him, then suddenly asked. Or, because this is the Soul Shrieker's scheme, you want to give up? Gu Qingshan sighed. It's impossible to stop a human from forging the heaven sword, and it's even more impossible to give up. Regardless of what kind of scheme or trap it is, I have to save the Earth Sword. If the Earth Sword is a part of a certain weapon, then I'll dismantle that weapon. Come, let's take a look at the current situation. Saying so, Gu Qingshan casually released a frigid fog. The cold mist condensed into a lifelike human cultivator in the air. Gu Qingshan explained. The current situation is like this: humanity can't win against the divinities. At most, 1 or 2 human cultivators can win against the divinities, but that's meaningless. As she spoke, the fog began to move. The human cultivator turned into a divinity with a frosty flame burning between his eyebrows. Although the divinities are temporarily ruling over humanity, they can't win against the truly powerful desolate monsters. The divinity returned to the fog. The fog once again manifested as a ferocious monster. The desolate monsters only listened to the Lord of Desolation's orders, which is also the Soul Shrieker. The fog once again moved and manifested as a strange half-man, half-woman creature. The Soul Shrieker is an entity that cannot be communicated with, as well as our greatest enemy. The desolate monsters are under its rule, so they also cannot listen to us. Because of that, the power we have can only be used by the divinities. Gu Qingshan waved her hand, dispersing the frigid fog in the air. In other words, if I arrive at humanity's final moment and arrive at the Heaven Sword's location, if the Soul Shrieker appears, no one will be able to help me and I'll definitely die. That's why I need to prepare a bit more power, even if it comes from the divine race. Furthermore, I also need to find out how much the divine race knows about humanity's final preparations, to prevent them from also going to the true moment to cause trouble. Hearing this long explanation, Luo Bingli finally felt relieved. I understand, then I'll wait for you to come up with a solution. Seeing that the other party was convinced, Gu Qingshan calmed down. Luo Bingli was in charge of managing the humans' forging of the Heaven Sword, so her identity is basically the same as the figure of light. If there's anything, I have to let her know so that we don't become estranged. Not to mention, turning into the god of frost and chill cost a total of 900,000 soul points. Right now, the war god Ui is acting like a little wife, plundering people's wealth every day, so I don't have a way to obtain that amount of soul points. Not to mention, I now hold this divinity's power, so I have the same fighting strength as him. Once I return to my human body, these powers and skills will be greatly reduced. Chapter 866. Gu Qingshan sat on the divine throne and silently waited. He was waiting for the figure of light to return. The golden flame divinity's choice would affect his entire plan from now on. If the golden flame divinity passed the figure of light's test, then Gu Qingshan would have no choice but to accept him. Time passed. Another day went by. It had been 5 days since the previous divine king and the god of frost and chill died. 2 more days until the new divinity would be born. Gu Qingshan decided to wait until the last day. If the figure of light still didn't return, he was prepared to give up his divinity body and leave with Luo Bingli. At this point, 2 divine guards flew into the Grand Divine Palace and knelt on one knee. Your Majesty, the light divinity has arrived. He wishes to see you. He came alone? Gu Qingshan asked. Yes, Your Majesty, the divine guard replied. Gu Qingshan smiled and said, Let him in. A few moments later, the figure of light was led into the Grand Divine Palace. He bowed to Gu Qingshan. Greetings, Your Majesty. What was the result? Gu Qingshan asked directly. The figure of light sighed and replied in a low voice. As you expected, Your Majesty. Gu Qingshan looked at the figure of light and asked curiously, What did you bring the golden flame divinity to do? I brought him to a phantom image that was completely taken over by our divine race. I told him that Gu Qingshan was inside that phantom image. The figure of light replied. That clearly wasn't the truth, Gu Qingshan refuted. Indeed, I created an illusion to see if he would abandon the old divine race at a crucial moment. To kill his target, he wouldn't even care about the lives of our ancestors, the figure of light replied. Gu Qingshan continued. And then, to kill Gu Qingshan, he really did sacrifice the benefits of our old divine race. Indeed, the figure of light replied. Gu Qingshan waved her hand dismissively and coldly asked, You didn't kill him? I directly returned, why? The one who holds humanity's ultimate secret is the human cultivator Gu Qingshan from several tens of thousands of years in the future. We thought that if we worked together with the golden flame divinity to kill him and seize the secrets of humanity from him, we would be able to save everything. But now we've learned the truth from you. Against an unstoppable entity like the Soul Shrieker, the person of Gu Qingshan is no longer important. The figure of light paused a bit, then spoke a bit confusedly. Everything we've prepared is useless against the ruler of the desolate race and the seven-colored spear in his hand, let alone the eternal true God. We really can't think of anything. In the face of the truth of history, where should the Protoss go? Gu Qingshan fell silent after hearing the question. This was also a problem he was considering for the human race. The Soul Shrieker would never allow anyone to ruin its plans. The previous deity king secretly imitated the human race and created the Six Paths reincarnation, but he was killed by Zhongyu. Who could escape from such a powerful and vigilant existence? Who could go against it? Luo Bingli stood on one side and coldly observed with a hesitant expression. She fully understood the difficulty of this, as well as the huge predicament humanity and the divine race were facing. But what could she do? At that moment, the guides of the divine race, the guides of humanity, as well as the future cultivators who opened the phantom images of the age of old, had all gathered in the grand divine palace. They all fell into deep thought. The entire grand divine palace was silent. A few moments later, suddenly, a divine guard flew in, knelt on one knee and reported, "Your Majesty, the golden flame divinity has returned. He wishes to see you." Gu Qingshan glanced at the figure of light in surprise. "Does he know that he's in an illusion?" Gu Qingshan asked. "He probably doesn't," the figure of light replied. Gu Qingshan muttered, "I thought he would return to the future after killing the illusionary Gu Qingshan. Why did he come here?" Gu Qingshan calmed down. He suddenly smiled and ordered, "Summon all the divinities, as well as the 16 divine guards, to the grand divine palace. No one is to be absent." Understood. The divine guards received their orders. After all the divinities had gathered in the grand divine palace, Gu Qingshan ordered again, "Summon the golden flame divinity." Understood. A few moments later, the golden flame divinity entered the grand divine palace. He looked at all the deities gathered in the hall in surprise and groaned in his mind. "I know all of the God of Frost and Chill's abilities and weaknesses, so if I suddenly attack, it's very likely that my ambush will succeed. If that's the case, other than me, no divinity would be able to obtain the Heaven Sword. Unfortunately, this God of Frost and Chill, who already knew that he would die in the future, is extremely cautious and cautious. Seems like I have no choice but to do it openly." While he was thinking, the Grand Divine King on the throne had already spoken. "Golden Flame Divinity, did you come to say goodbye to us?" The Golden Flame Divinity regained his composure and spoke with a triumphant smile. "Your Divine Majesty, that is indeed the case. I've finally killed Gu Qingshan." The audience hall went silent. The divinities all stared at him. The figure of light didn't say a word. Luo Bingli looked up at Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan asked with interest, "You found him? How did you kill him?" The golden flame divinity sighed. "I made a few sacrifices, using the flesh and blood of several divine race brethren in exchange for the desolate race's trust. They allowed me to enter the desolate world to kill Gu Qingshan, and I quickly succeeded." Hearing the golden flame divinity's words, the other divinities' expressions changed a bit. The golden flame divinity didn't notice and spoke emotionally. "I need to return to my era. After all, history was changed because of me, and the future has also caused a chain reaction. I need to return to deal with a lot of situations." Gu Qingshan elegantly waved her hand and replied, "Go ahead." The golden flame divinity stood still. "Is there something else?" Gu Qingshan asked. "There is something else, it's related to the Heaven Sword," the golden flame divinity replied. Gu Shan slowly said. The matter of the Heaven Sword is actually a trap that you can't understand. If you want to find it, I won't stop you, the Golden Flame Divinity questioned further. Then what about you? Me, Gu Shan shook her head deprecatingly. For the sake of our race's fate, I have no choice but to think of a way to get close to it. In other words, a battle between you and I will eventually occur, the Golden Flame Divinity said. You don't need to worry about me. If you can obtain the Heaven Sword, I will only wish you a long life. Gu Shan smiled and replied. The Golden Flame Divinity was a bit confused. Who cares? This god of frost and chill has already received the figure of light's support, so he might leave this phantom image and become a powerful competitor for me. From the perspective of history, the desolate race didn't know about the Heaven Sword at all. Although humanity created the Heaven Sword, they weren't strong enough to be feared. Among the divine race, only this god of frost and chill could compete with me. In other words, if I defeat him, the Heaven Sword will be mine. The Golden Flame Divinity made up his mind. He circulated all the power in his body and unleashed a blinding light that illuminated the entire divine palace. Come, god of frost and chill, fight against me. We shall see who is qualified to obtain the Heaven Sword. The divinities were all surprised. It was very rare for someone to challenge the Divine King in public, so normally, no one would interfere when it happened. They didn't think this divinity from the future would dare to challenge the Divine King. How would the Divine King react? The divinities all looked at Gu Shan. Gu Shan, on the other hand, looked at the figure of light. The figure of light remained silent for a long time. What is your decision? Gu Shan asked for the last time. The figure of light looked at her and still said nothing. Gu Shan nodded. Very well, I will decide. He leaned back on the divine throne and asked the Golden Flame Divinity. Do you really want to fight? The Golden Flame Divinity's presence rose to its peak and shouted. That's right, come and fight me fairly, let everyone see who is qualified to pursue the Heaven Sword. Gu Shan calmly asked. One last question, what are you going to do with the Heaven Sword? The Golden Flame Divinity paused briefly, then quickly answered. I am going to use it to change the future of our divine race. Gu Shan pursued further. You want to take it back to your future? The Golden Flame Divinity nodded. Isn't it obvious? Is this Divine King an idiot, asking the same question over and over again? What exactly is he trying to do? On the throne, Gu Shan sighed with a disappointed expression. At this point, the divinities couldn't hold themselves back anymore. We can't let him take the Heaven Sword. That is a powerful weapon that can change everything. He's already killed Gu Shan, and he still wants the Heaven Sword. Outrageous. He took the Heaven Sword. What do we do now? The Heaven Sword is ours. We need to change our fate of certain death, the divinities discussed in a low voice. Their voices were getting louder and louder. All of a sudden, a divinity clad in a bright yellow flame jumped out. You dare to challenge the Divine King? You'll have to get past me first. The Golden Flame Divinity's expression changed and tried to stop him. Wait a minute, I want to. He didn't have time to say anything. The divinity charged straight at him. The Golden Flame Divinity didn't want to get hurt, so he had no choice but to face him head-on. The duel began. The divinities watched with bated breath. The figure of light remained silent and didn't try to stop him. Luo Bingli sneaked a glance at Gu Shan. Chapter 867. The battle ended as quickly as it came. After all, the Golden Flame Divinity came from the future, so he had studied and understood every divinity in history. He wasn't weak in the first place. Combined with knowing all of his opponent's abilities and weaknesses, he quickly defeated his opponent. At this point, Gu Shan casually said, Go, capture him. The 16 divine guards and numerous divinities surrounded the Golden Flame Divinity, not waiting for him to unleash any powerful attacks before charging forward. No matter how powerful the Golden Flame Divinity was, He wasn't a match for so many divinities from the age of old and was captured on the spot. He roared in unwillingness. "Divine King, you don't even dare to fight a fair battle against me?" Gu Qingshan calmly replied, "My life is much more valuable than a fair battle." He raised his hand and gestured. Boundless coldness began to rise from the golden flame divinity's feet. The crystal-clear white frost froze the golden flame divinity's feet and spread up his body. Wherever the frigid aura went, the golden flames would also disappear. The golden flame divinity's expression finally changed. "If I didn't come from the future, I would have been the same as the other divinities, unable to understand the true power of this technique." This was the god of frost and chill's ultimate hidden technique, frost extinction. The wave of extreme coldness would cause all living beings to fall into eternal silence. Even he wouldn't be able to go against this technique. But such a powerful technique still had a huge flaw. It required time to charge up, and it was extremely hard to hit the opponent. Now that he was being captured by the divinities and couldn't move at all, this flaw had been eliminated. "How dare you? I'm a fellow divinity from the future," the golden flame divinity shouted. "You've never helped us divinities from the age of old, and even did something that disappointed me at the very last moment," the divine king coldly replied. The frost continued to spread. The golden flame divinity hurriedly looked at the figure of light and loudly declared, "My mission is complete, please send me back, I don't want to stay here any longer." The figure of light hesitantly looked at Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan shook her head, manipulated the elemental ice with both hands to continue frost extinction, and spoke. "You represent the future," he seemed to be contemplating for a long time as he spoke very slowly. "But you represent a future that we do not want." While they were talking, the golden flame divinity was completely restrained by the other divinities, unable to resist at all, and quickly turned into a statue made of ice. Thud! A long ice staff flew through the air and pierced the center of the statue. The entire human-shaped statue shattered into countless small ice shards and fell to the ground. The golden flame god from the future died in the hands of the God King, just like that. The divine king's voice rang from the throne on the high platform. "When your life returns to silence and slumber, the past and present of the entire era will grow and strengthen with your tombstone as the foundation, giving birth to a new future. That is the new destiny of our god race." Inside the grand divine palace, none of the divinities made a sound. They knelt on one knee and bowed respectfully to the divine king on the throne. No one had ever seen this kind of ice magic. Previously, some people had been muttering in their hearts that the celestial king was avoiding the battle, but now that they saw it, the celestial king had killed the golden flame divinity with a single strike. With such a powerful force, there was no need for a duel. The divine king will definitely lead everyone to change the fate of death and surpass the desolate race. The divinities all looked at the divine king with reverence. While the divine king was staring at the void of space, as if he could see the future of the divine race, his entire being exuded a solemn and dignified air. In truth, he was reading the glowing text in the void of space. "You've killed the golden flame divinity. He was a powerful divinity from the future. After deducting the soul points you received from the system, actual increment is 20." Gu Qingshan silently sighed. Clink clank. A coin fell out from the ice shards. Gu Qingshan's expression changed. The coin had already fallen into the figure of light's hand. A coin? Why did the age of old have coins as well? The coins of the strife zones were said to have been forged by the divinities. Perhaps these coins were originally passed down from the age of old, then passed down and used by the 7 demons of the strife zones. Gu Qingshan no longer dared to look down on things like coins. He didn't have anything else to say at this point, so he dismissed the divinities from the grand divine palace. The palace quickly became empty. Gu Qingshan then asked, "What was that coin?" The figure of light replied, "The coin that can find Gu Qingshan. I once gave it to the golden flame divinity, but he failed to live up to our will. Gu Qingshan was surprised. Why can this coin find Gu Qingshan? The figure of light replied. Because within the entire phantom images, he is the only outsider, so we can sense his movements through the coin and track him. It glanced at Luo Bingli. Gu Qingshan understood and casually waved her hand to freeze Luo Bingli inside a large block of ice. The figure of light seems to want to tell her a great secret, so I'll have to trouble her for now. The figure of light then explained. The coins represent value and power, a common item of humanity in the bygone era. The bygone era. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. The common coins of the strife zones were created by the divinities from the age of old, so they had various functions and knowledge. But it turns out they were all from humanity in the bygone era. The figure of light continued. Humanity liked to endow coins with different levels of power, using them as a means of exchange and circulation. After humanity left, there weren't that many coins left in this world. The desolate race had collected all of them. They were a bunch of fools. We tried everything we could think of, but in the end, we managed to come to an agreement with them and obtained the chance to come into contact with coins. Your Divine Majesty, as you know, our divine race's strongest ability is to learn and imitate. Through imitation, we managed to obtain a portion of the coin's secrets, as well as a shocking secret. What secret? Gu Qingshan asked. The figure of light looked at her for a long while without saying anything. What is it? If it's inconvenient, you don't have to tell me, Gu Qingshan casually said. The figure of light shook his head. There is a condition for knowing this secret. Tell me about it. I'll ask one more thing. Is your will to save the divine race still as firm as before? Of course, you must promise me, after knowing this secret, you will leave this era and follow me into the other phantom images. Then, at the final moment of the age of old, you will enter the true era of existence. Your Divine Majesty, I will do my best to help you, but your responsibility is to lead the divine race through the danger of extinction. Gu Qingshan thought briefly and nodded. Very well, the figure of light then asked. Do you know why the bygone era humanity had to leave the primordial heaven realm? I don't. Gu Qingshan sat up straight and answered with a serious expression. He could already sense that he was about to hear an unprecedented secret. Sure enough, the figure of light continued. Our divine race's forte lies in our ability to learn and imitate, so we investigated the desolate race's collection of coins and identified the 3 most valuable bygone-era coins. These 3 bygone-era coins represent the highest value. Each of them has a secret connection to 3 unimaginable powers. These 3 powers are the Great Bramble Tree, the Angel of Condemnation, and the Demon King of Order. When these 3 powers are gathered together, they can reverse the flow of all things, revive the dead, and stop the fate of all living beings from advancing. Gu Qingshan silently listened. His heart stopped for a bit. The Angel of Condemnation. That's Little Dusk. Now that I think about it, I once asked her if she knew the secret of the coins. What did she say at the time? No, you can't use the same method you use to measure wealth to measure truth and secrets. Every number above 900 has a unique meaning. You can't tell which one is more important than the other. Seemingly recalling something, Little Dusk's voice became faint and indistinct. All the coins above 900 are equal, except for the final 3 coins. Each of them was only forged once, so that's why. Gu Qingshan regained his senses. So Little Dusk represented a type of ultimate power. That's why that entity didn't hesitate to go back on its word in front of billions of living beings to not give Little Dusk back to me. It wanted to obtain Little Dusk's power. Gu Qingshan thought for a few moments, then suddenly said, I know this is a shocking secret, but I don't know how it's related to the bygone-era humanity leaving the primordial heaven realm. The figure of light subconsciously lowered its voice and spoke. According to our research, we found that the bygone-era humanity didn't know about this from the very beginning either. Later on, they discovered that by using the 3 coins as the key to trigger everything, then using the 3 entities They represented to simultaneously trigger this unprecedented power. The bygone-era humanity was naturally overjoyed, but abusing this power that could travel through space-time, change everything, and disrupt fate brought about an unknown threat to the bygone-era humanity. A threat? Indeed, all living beings, even space-time and fate itself, were constantly being disrupted and manipulated. This was like a powerful signal that attracted the attention of beings living in the fog of space-time, the eternal abyss, and even other unknown places. In those places, there were terrifying and unknown entities. Perhaps the soul shrieker you spoke of came to this world. At that time humanity was unwilling to give up the power brought about by the 3 coins, but they were also fighting against those terrifying entities with everything they had. They built some sort of indestructible defensive structure to stop the spying of various terrifying entities, and now we know that it was the Taiwei fortress you mentioned. But in the end, the bygone-era humanity found that they were no match for them. That was why humanity entered the reality gate and left the primordial heaven realm. As soon as they left, all fluctuations calmed down. The terrifying and unknown entities also slowly left. Hearing this, Gu Qingshan couldn't help but ask, "And then you tried to replicate the 3 coins? Did you succeed?" The figure of light sighed emotionally. "We failed countless times, never once did we succeed." Chapter 868. Gu Qingshan once obtained a coin that could create a fridge out of thin air. At first, he thought that it was a magical artifact designed by the divinities, but as time passed, he found out that the coins had even more important functions and secret. He even obtained a replica coin that allowed him to travel 5 minutes in time. And now he knew the truth about the coins. They were created by the humans of the bygone era, containing a shocking amount of power and secret. "I'm guessing that our divine race once replicated many of the coins from the bygone era," Gu Qingshan said. The figure of light replied, "Indeed, after your death, the next divine king who succeeded the throne would discover the secret of the coins. At the time, many replicas of the coins had been replicated. Other than the 3 I mentioned just now, the replicas of the other coins have continued." Gu Qingshan cracked her neck a bit uncomfortably and said, "Listening to someone else talk about what happened after my death is a bit uncomfortable," the figure of light replied. "Once you come with me and see more history, you'll slowly get used to it," Gu Qingshan casually asked. "Then, where exactly are the last 3 coins?" "During the time when our relationship with the desolate race was at its best, they allowed us to communicate with them. We took that chance to find out the secret of the coins. They knew nothing about it, but the coins belonged to them," the figure of light replied. "You didn't try to retrieve the 3 coins?" Gu Qingshan asked. "The divine race would be discovered as soon as they entered the desolate world, so we imitated the bygone-era humans and created a technique that allows us to disguise ourselves as humans. I've also used this technique on you. After several attempts, we finally obtained the 3 coins," the figure of light replied. "Then what are you waiting for? You can use the power of the coins," Gu Qingshan asked in confusion. "We can't," the figure of light sighed. "These 3 coins must be infused with the power they represent in order to be effective. We did manage to contact the great bramble tree through the coins, as well as discover the resting place of the angel of condemnation because of the coins. The great bramble tree was willing to help us once," the figure of light continued. "As for the angel of condemnation, we used the coin to awaken her. When she woke up, she didn't remember what happened in the bygone era, as if she had forgotten everything." Gu Qingshan narrowed her eyes and said, "How could this be? Was it because the bygone-era humans were afraid that she would remember how to use the 3 powers?" The figure of light replied, "It is very likely, so we told her that she was our creation and gave her a lot of care, allowing her to slowly accept her identity." Gu Qingshan remained silent. "So that's how it is." So she had already existed since the bygone era, only she had lost her memories. Come to think of it, Xiaoxi was as pure as a piece of white paper, so it was only natural that she would be deceived. It appeared that the deck of cards she possessed was not created by the divine race, but rather a power inheritance from the bygone era humans. It was no wonder that a jade card could be so powerful. If her power was at its peak, it was hard to imagine how powerful the cards she possessed would be. With Xiaoxi's identity and strength, no wonder the divinities were so wary of her. Gu Qingshan replied without changing her expression. Of the 3 powers, you've already obtained 2 of them, only the Demon King of Order remains. This seems to be the order of humanity. Did you not manage to borrow the power of this order? The figure of light replied. This was the most difficult part. The Demon King of Order must be created by World's Apocalypse Online. Demon King Order and the entire human race can only have a single Demon King, but we do not allow the Demon King to appear. Why not? Gu Qingshan asked. Because the Demon King's appearance represents that World's Apocalypse Online. Demon King Order has matured. This is a crucial factor for the other orders to awaken. As long as the Demon King is willing, he would be able to awaken the other orders. We cannot allow such a situation to occur. The figure of light's tone became cold. Once the other orders awaken, humanity will enter an era of rapid growth and prosperity. Our rule will come to an end. Gu Qingshan asked in return. Then why did you release this order in the first place? The figure of light replied. The order came from the arrangements of the bygone era humans before they left. It was unstoppable. Even if we and the desolate race did everything we could only change the order in which the order would appear. Gu Qingshan fell into thought. So the root of everything was still the Demon King Order. For humanity, this order was the most vicious of all the orders. Combined with the divinity's incitement and deception, humanity viewed the Demon King Order as their enemy. The Demon King Order shouldn't have been accepted by the majority of humanity, because only a single person could reach the peak of this order and become the Demon King. Only when the Demon King appears would the other orders slowly awaken and humanity once again flourish. The bygone era humans definitely didn't expect that after so many years, the order would still remain dormant, while their compatriots were still being enslaved by the divine race, the desolate race, and even the eternal true God. This was truly regrettable. Gu Qingshan pondered a bit and asked, after I die, how would the future divine kings deal with the Demon King Order? As soon as someone carries an order, both humanity and we would find them and kill them, the figure of light replied. Our divine race can't carry an order? Unfortunately, we can't. Gu Qingshan continued. Then, I have a very important question. Is it possible that only the Demon King can transfer the power of the Demon King Order into the coin and fuse it with the other 2 powers? The figure of light replied. That is not the case. Once the order evolves to the point where the Demon King Order descends, an order carrier at that stage would also be able to do it, but the final power they receive would be weakened. Gu Qingshan continued. If that is the case, I already have a solution. The figure of light was surprised. You have a solution? He trembled as he asked. The divine race had spent countless years trying to come up with a way to deal with everything, but now the god of frost and frost said that he had a solution. Listen, it's like this. Gu Qingshan cleared her throat and spoke in a low voice. We need to choose a single person and help them carry the Demon King Order. But we will strictly control their progress and not let them become the Demon King. Once we've successfully fused the 3 powers together, we'll kill them. The figure of light didn't say anything. He was completely shocked by this idea. Throughout their long history, the divine race had never considered having the Order and humanity work together, nor did they hope for the relationship between the 2 of them to ease up even a little bit. This was an extremely dangerous strategy, no different from dancing on the edge of a bottomless cliff. But if they use humanity to obtain the power of order, then kill them, all threats would disappear, and their goal would also be achieved. It was that simple. After thinking about it, it was completely feasible. Even inside the giant block of ice, Luo Bingli's eyes twitched a bit. This wasn't noticed by Gu Qingshan and the figure of light. The grand divine palace fell silent. After a while, the figure of light finally spoke up with difficulty. Even if he isn't the Demon King, once the Order reaches the Demon King Ascension stage, that human cultivator will become unprecedentedly powerful and won't be easy to kill, Gu Qingshan coldly declared. All divinities at once, the figure of light went silent for a while longer. Finally, it spoke. This is a gamble, we'll fail if we're not careful, we'll all die in the future. If that's the case, what's the harm in taking a gamble? Gu Qingshan said. The figure of light spoke. If we want to do this, we need to find a suitable human cultivator. Who do you think we should look for? Gu Qingshan replied. Of course it should be Gu Qingshan. The figure of light was a bit surprised and asked hesitantly. Why him? Because Gu Qingshan came from the future, she understands the Order very well, so she can easily accept such a thing, Gu Qingshan patiently explained. According to the Golden Flame divinity, in the future, the Demon King Order still hasn't produced a true Demon King, and the many orders haven't been awakened. Humanity has always hated the Demon King Order. That's why he wouldn't want to become the Demon King, nor would he want to awaken more orders. He knows nothing about this, the figure of light asked. Why would he help us? The Heaven Sword. I promised to help him obtain the Heaven Sword, Gu Qingshan replied. The Heaven Sword? Indeed, the Golden Flame divinity said that Gu Qingshan has the Earth Sword on her, and the twin swords Heaven and Earth were the eternal true God's scheme. The weapons he wanted to forge. Gu Qingshan gave the figure of light some time to digest this information. After a while, he spoke. When the twin swords Heaven and Earth appear, the eternal true God would also appear. He has been waiting for the twin swords. There's no need for us to do anything. Gu Qingshan will die. That's why before we help him obtain the Heaven Sword, we must first help him carry the Order. Become the carrier of the Demon King Ascension state, use him to complete the fusion of the three powers, and then, the figure of light instinctively repeated. And then he will be able to meet the eternal true God and face his own death. Gu Qingshan's voice softened. At this time, we will use the power that surpasses space and time to avoid the end of this era, as well as avoid the desolate race's slaughter of us. Even if this action would draw the attention of some unknown terrifying entity, that would be something that the eternal true God and Gu Qingshan would have to face, while our divine race will travel through space and time to travel to the future. Several 10,000 years later, all of our brethren of the divine race will survive. Chapter 869. Hearing that, the figure of light fell into thought. The divine race's natural vigilance made it impossible for it to cooperate with humanity. Indeed, the divine race had never cooperated with humanity. But there was no other way. The Divine King's suggestion seemed to be a completely new idea, one that the divine race had never tried before. The figure of light thought for a while, then asked again, Why Gu Qingshan? Gu Qingshan replied, Because he understands the Order, and can quickly complete the evolution of the Order, he patiently explained, and also because he isn't a person of this era, he also came from the future. Just look at the Golden Flame divinity. He doesn't care about the fate of the people of this era at all. He wouldn't give up his own benefits for the sake of humanity of this era. He will definitely cooperate with us for the sake of obtaining the Heaven Sword. Furthermore, he's still too weak, according to Golden Flame. He hasn't even reached the level of a passable cultivator. Even if he carries the Order, his final strength will be very limited, making him much easier to kill compared to the cultivators of this era. Even if there are any changes, we can still easily kill him. If everything goes smoothly, let him take the twin swords Heaven and Earth to meet the eternal true God. That will be the moment when both he and the Order die, the figure of light refuted. Once the people carrying the Order die, the Order won't die, but it will fall into slumber. The Order will fall into slumber? That outcome wouldn't affect our plan at all. In fact, it would be even more beneficial to us, wouldn't it? Gu Qingshan asked. The figure of light thought back and forth for a long while. He hesitated, then sighed. This is the craziest of ideas. We've never thought of using humanity, nor have we ever relaxed against the order. But now we want to use their power. Only by using every power we can will our divine race truly have a chance at survival. Gu Qingshan clenched her fist and declared. But Golden Flame and I have been searching for so long without being able to catch Gu Qingshan. Are you sure you can find him? The figure of light asked. Gu Qingshan smiled. He knew that the other party was tempted. Just leave this small matter to this king. Just because an idiot like Golden Flame couldn't do it doesn't mean this king can't, Gu Qingshan said slowly. The figure of light seemed to have made up his mind and spoke even faster. Very well, I'll leave the matter of Gu Qingshan to you. As for the great bramble tree and the angel of condemnation, I need to make preparations first before meeting up with you, Gu Qingshan replied. Don't worry, by the time you arrive, I guarantee that I'll have already found Gu Qingshan and reached an agreement with him. The figure of light stared at him without saying a word. What's wrong? Gu Qingshan smiled, quietly preparing for battle. You are the most flexible and resourceful divine king I have ever seen. This is the fortune of our divine race, the figure of light said. Everything is for the divine race, Gu Qingshan resolutely declared. Yes, everything is for the god race. The figure of light praised. It flew out of the divine king palace and disappeared into the void of the sky beyond heaven. Another moment passed. It was now that Gu Qingshan slowly calmed down. He leaned back on the divine throne, his eyes a bit blank. In such a short amount of time, he analyzed the situation, came up with a strategy, made a decision, and convinced the other party. Even he felt a bit tired. Closing his eyes, Gu Qingshan waved his hand. The giant block of ice that froze Luo Bingli instantly disappeared. Luo Bingli regained her senses and stared at Gu Qingshan with her almond eyes. After a bit of hesitation, she asked, What did the figure of light tell you? Gu Qingshan told her everything. Luo Bingli silently listened until Gu Qingshan finished and sighed. You're playing with fire, it's fine, I can handle it, Gu Qingshan replied. What are we going to do now? Luo Bingli asked. The divine race will no longer try to stop me from obtaining the twin swords heaven and earth, so we'll just need to find the swords when the time is right, Gu Qingshan replied. What if the soul shrieker appears? Luo Bingli reminded her. Gu Qingshan replied. After we get the swords, I'll take you with me, we'll use that power that allows us to travel through time to the future, Luo Bingli replied. The figure of light will definitely stop us at that time. I'll think of a solution for that, Gu Qingshan said. Luo Bingli fell silent. She seemed to have a lot on her mind. But Gu Qingshan didn't have the time to say anything else to her right now. He was even more concerned about her situation. Ting! A clear chime resounded in his ears. The war god OS had actively sent a communication request. We've come to a decision, Gu Qingshan, the war god UI told him. A decision? What kind of decision? Gu Qingshan asked in a low voice. From the other party's tone, he could hear a sense of seriousness. The war god UI replied. In your past life, you were the carrier of the Demon King Order. In this life, you also carried the Demon King Order. But in the past several 10,000 years, you will carry the Demon King Order. Again, your connection to the Demon King Order is filled with the past, present, and future, so the disguise I put up during the final moments of your past life has already begun to break. Once you carry the Demon King Order again, the chaos of space-time will erupt. On your body, you will become a blinding beacon within the infinite spacetime, attracting the attention of unfathomable and unknown horrors. Gu Qingshan's heart tensed up. If that's the case, wouldn't I be the same as the bygone-era humanity, attracting the attention of those existences that can destroy everything? Gu Qingshan sighed and replied. Carrying the Demon King order, again, is the best strategy one can come up with, and it has already been accepted by the figure of light. It is already preparing for this. If I go back on my word now, it will definitely become suspicious, not to mention, if I give up now, I won't be able to save the Earth Sword, the war god Yui replied. You must make a choice now, whether you want to give up on carrying the order, or return to your past life and complete the disguise I put up. I remember you saying that you can no longer take me through space-time, Gu Qingshan replied. That's right, you can't take me through any other space-time, but I left a mark of space-time in your past life. This is the path of your life, you can go there again. The soul points I asked for before were all in preparation for this moment. If I go back, what should I do? Gu Qingshan asked. Give me to your past self. The war god Yui replied. A dagger appeared in front of Gu Qingshan's vision. This was a golden dagger. The blade of the dagger didn't have any unnecessary patterns on it, it was glowing brightly. A faint layer of golden light flowed endlessly around the dagger like a tidal wave. Looking at this golden dagger, Gu Qingshan suddenly recalled when she first returned to this world, she was holding this dagger in her hand. This was the true form of the war god Yui. The war god Yui's voice came. This is the best chance. At this moment you came from the future, but also the past, as well as representing your own present. Go back to your past life and give me to your past self. This way, a perfect closed loop will be formed between space-time. From now on, no one will be able to pry into my true origins. Gu Qingshan went silent briefly, then softly asked, Would the current me lose you? The war god Yui replied. You can only temporarily lose me for the future you to obtain me. When will that be? Gu Qingshan asked. The war god Yui replied. When you bring the twin swords heaven and earth back several 10,000 years in the future, from the perspective of causality, this entire matter will have become a causality. At that time, according to the law of causality, I will once again appear on your body. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but shake her head. If I choose this path, I will lose the war god Yui and have to fight alone in the age of old. But to save the Earth Sword, to save everything I care about, this is a must. Only by losing the war god Yui would I be able to safely carry the Demon King order, and work hard to change everything. Gu Qingshan fell silent. I've already gotten used to fighting with the system, but now I'll have to return to being alone. Fighting alone, facing countless dangers of life and death without any notifications, without any other entities by my side. The war god Yui waited for a while, then asked. I'll ask you one last time, do you want to give up carrying the Demon King order, or do you want to return to your past life and find your past self? Gu Qingshan took a deep breath and shouted, Come, let us do this. Very well. The war god Yui replied in satisfaction. Lines of glowing text quickly appeared on the war god Yui. Request accepted, releasing all soul points. Spacetime return coordinates confirmed, returning to your past life. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, depart. Everything in the Grand Divine Palace fell silent. A golden glow enveloped Gu Qingshan. Chapter 870. Inside the Grand Divine Palace. Time was still. The dust in the air, the warm light, the tranquil breeze, Luo Bingley who was standing still, everything was still at this moment. Gu Qingshan walked into a cluster of golden light and disappeared. The cluster of golden light slowly shrunk, scattered into specks of light, and quickly faded away. At the very last moment Luo Bingley moved. Her whole body was freed from the frozen state, and her gaze lightly fell on the golden light. To be able to leave directly from here, how rare, she muttered and reached her hand out to grab a speck of golden light that was about to fade away. The speck of golden light seemed to have noticed her existence and quickly expanded, turning into a golden dagger. The war god Yui appeared. Who exactly are you? The golden dagger asked. And who are you? Luo Bingley asked in return. The golden dagger didn't waste any more words and gave off a blinding light. Under the illumination of the light, Luo Bingli looked like a beautiful young girl standing in the morning sun. She carefully sensed the golden light and coldly asked, "Are you investigating me? You're not a normal cultivator, you're a surprised voice came from the golden dagger. It seemed to understand something. So that's why the golden dagger sighed. If you already know, then please don't tell anyone who I am. Furthermore, can you let me see what's happening on your side? If you refuse, I'll erase the space-time coordinates of this place. You won't be able to return," Luo Bingli told her. "You can't threaten me with anything you say, but because of Gu Qingshan, I can agree," the war god Yui replied. The golden dagger drew a line in the air. A screen of light appeared in front of Luo Bingli. On the screen, Gu Qingshan was quickly flying through the fog of spacetime. "Thank you," Luo Bingli said in satisfaction. The golden dagger ignored her and disappeared into the void of space. Within the fog of spacetime, Gu Qingshan was flying at full speed. This was a world completely made up of fog and squares. Each square represented a time zone, and the time zones were connected to each other, forming a complete flow of time from the past to the future. All existences existed in each square, unable to transcend the dimensional limits of time and space. Who would have thought that space-time would be divided into squares from this perspective? I've never seen anything like this before, Gu Qingshan commented. Both you and I will be taking this path for the first time, the war god Yui's voice came. This time, we'll be using a temporary path from another higher dimension to return. Technological paths have always been relatively safe and won't attract any prying eyes. Of course, we can't go too far. As he spoke, an extremely powerful force came over. Gu Qingshan was pulled into one of the squares. The world was spinning. Darkness engulfed them. Then, the whole world gradually became clear in front of him. The flames of war surged. Smoke filled the sky. On the other side of the river, the battle was at its most critical moment. The human race was about to perish. Groups of armored soldiers knelt on the ground, causing the figure of one of the armored generals to be particularly conspicuous. Gu Qingshan stared at that figure and sighed deeply. "That's him. The him of the past life." Ting! The war god Yui's voice came. "Gu Qingshan, take a look at the golden glow around your body. What is this?" Gu Qingshan asked. "The world isolation barrier will disappear in 15 breaths worth of time, at which point the people of this world will be able to see you. Be careful, you must complete everything within 15 breaths worth of time without stopping, otherwise the living beings of the past life will see two of you. If that happens, one of the two of you will be erased by the law of time. Understood? What should I do next?" Gu Qingshan spoke in a low voice. "I will activate time stanch in a moment. You must take advantage of that time to send me into the hands of your past life. Be careful, you must be fast, but also not let the past you notice anything," Gu Qingshan replied. "Don't worry, I'm currently in the Divine King's body with my strength. It's very simple to accomplish this. What should we do after that?" The war god Yui replied. "I will immediately bring the past you back to the beginning of everything." Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. When everything began, it was during the reign of Qing Ping, when humanity first came into contact with the demons. On a stormy night, outside an empty military camp, a cook was patrolling the camp. "I woke up from a pit of corpses." Gu Qingshan recalled everything at the time and sighed. "What should I do now that you're gone?" he asked. The war god Yui replied. "Once this world is destroyed, the origin power of the collapsed world will explode. When that power reaches you, due to the mutual repulsion between the two laws of spacetime, you will be kicked back from this place." "That doesn't sound too complicated," Gu Qingshan replied. The war god Yui patiently reminded him. "Remember, after you return, even if I'm not here, you will still have the ability to absorb soul points. After I leave, nothing will be able to take away your soul point. You must make good use of it. It is one of the strongest sources of power. Is there a limit to how much soul points I can absorb?" Gu Qingshan seriously asked. There is, then I understand, at this point, in the military camp on the other side of the river, the past life's Gu Qingshan had already flown into the sky. Countless flying swords appeared from the void of space and followed him as he rode the wind. Sword array, mutual destruction. With a sword in hand, Gu Qingshan charged straight towards the gigantic demonic figure in the sky. In the military camp below him, countless voices resounded within the intense wind. Mr. Gu, we're going together! Together! Together with you! On the other side of the river, Gu Qingshan lowered his gaze. Seeing this scene from the past life again, he felt a bit dejected. Don't waste any time, it's time. The war god Yui urged him. Gu Qingshan replied. Divine skill, ground shrink. In a split second, he disappeared from the ground and reappeared in the sky. He used the power of the Divine King to hide in the void of space, staring at his past self as he flew up. Then, a golden shortsword appeared in his hand. Ready, the war god Yui's voice came from the golden shortsword. Boom! A blinding light swept across the world, turning into endless white light in the void of space. Immediately, the entire world became stagnant. Everything suddenly slowed down, and all sound disappeared. Gu Qingshan saw his past self flying towards the demon lord at an extremely slow speed. He saw himself opening his mouth and roaring. The power of countless cultivators converged into a blinding sword phantom that killed the gigantic demon lord that blocked out the sky. Time stopped at this very moment. The light became even brighter. Hurry! Now! The war god Yui's voice came from the golden shortsword. Gu Qingshan gritted his teeth, rushed forward, and put the golden shortsword into his past self's hand. Take care, he said. You take care as well, the war god Yui replied. Within the intense wind, a golden light flashed. In an instant, Gu Qingshan disappeared from this world with the golden shortsword in his hand. Everything was over. Seeing the war god Yui taking his past self away, Gu Qingshan immediately used ground shrink and disappeared from the sky. The concealment power on his body was about to dissipate, so he definitely couldn't let anyone see him. Gu Qingshan flew into the river, swam all the way to the bottom, formed a presence concealment hand seal, and silently waited. He continued to wait until the world began to collapse. A miraculous fluctuation was released from the deepest part of the world. This fluctuation swept across the entire world. As it flew past Gu Qingshan, it suddenly surrounded him, enveloping him layer by layer. The more this power gathered, the stronger it became, to the point where even Gu Qingshan could feel some sort of immense pressure. Even with the god of frost and chill's power, he couldn't hold on much longer against this power. All of a sudden, Gu Qingshan noticed that this power had completely gathered at his chest and pushed him away. The void of space broke apart. In an instant, Gu Qingshan disappeared from this part of spacetime. Several 10,000 years ago, the primordial heaven realm, the grand divine palace in the sky beyond heaven. Luo Bingli's eyebrows twitched. She quickly erased the golden light and stopped probing that area of spacetime. A second later, Gu Qingshan fell from the void of space and crashed to the ground. Time stopped or disappeared. Everything returned to normal. But Gu Qingshan was still lying on the ground without moving. He was staring straight at the void of space in front of him. The familiar UI in his vision was no longer there. System? Gu Qingshan silently asked. There was no clear sound. There was no answer. Indeed, the war god system had returned to the past. A closed loop of spacetime had been formed. With such perfect logic and causality, no one would be able to discover the war god system's origin. Furthermore, from now on, I can safely carry the Demon King order, without causing spacetime to become chaotic. A surprised voice suddenly resounded in the empty palace. Ah? It was Luo Bingli. She asked in surprise. You were sitting on the Divine King's throne just now, why did you suddenly fall to the ground? Gu Qingshan smiled bitterly and tried to cover it up. I was trying to comprehend a spell, so I accidentally made a mistake and fell down. From your expression, it seems this mistake affected you quite a bit? Luo Bingli looked at him and slowly asked. It's not that serious, but I'll have to be a bit more serious from now on. Gu Qingshan stood up from the ground, slowly walked back to the Divine King's throne and sat down. Chapter 871. The Grand Divine Palace. Gu Qingshan sat on his throne, feeling a bit unaccustomed. The war god Ui had disappeared from his sight. The empty void of space made him feel a bit uncomfortable. A thought kept popping up in his mind. Will the system really appear when I return to the strife zones? This was a question he couldn't help but seriously ponder. Gu Qingshan began to analyze the entire situation bit by bit. First of all, I'm currently in a phantom image of several 10,000 years ago. Phantom images are a fragment of a parallel world. I need to think of a way to travel to a certain point in time in the real world and take the Heaven Sword. From the perspective of the timeline, this timeline is far older than the timeline I came from in my previous life. Because of that, there are a total of 3 crucial points in the timeline. The first is the Age of Old. The second is the Cultivation World's Year of Peace. The third is the final moment I left, the Strife Zones, inside the Seal of Drifting Sand World. The first point is the farthest. Since I lost the War God system at that point, I naturally wouldn't be able to obtain it again. The second point is the final Year of Peace, when I just obtained the War God system. The first point in time and the second point in time formed a closed loop, but time always moved forward, so the timeline diverged from the second point and moved forward to the third point. After the second point in time, the War God system would always exist, so as time continues to move forward and reach the third point, the War God system would naturally still exist. So according to the most basic law of time and logic, as long as I return to the third point in time, the system would naturally return. How perfect! Gu Qingshan muttered to himself. He finally calmed down. What are you talking about? Luo Bingli asked. She tossed a jade disc to Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan caught the jade disc and habitually looked at the void of space. But there weren't any glowing lines of text there. Gu Qingshan smiled bitterly, looked at the jade disc in her hand and asked, You've finished? Yes, with this jade disc, we can go to the backup path at any time, Luo Bingli replied. That's great, from now on, we only need to wait for the figure of light to return, Gu Qingshan said. Luo Bingli was puzzled. Didn't you tell it that you were going to find Gu Qingshan? Are we just going to wait here? Of course not, follow me. Gu Qingshan flew to her side and took out a teleportation talisman. He infused his spiritual energy into the talisman, and the teleportation talisman immediately lit up. It brought Gu Qingshan and Luo Bingli out of the Grand Divine Palace. Amidst the ruins, light flashed. The two of them revealed themselves. Luo Bingli looked around and said, This is where the Drifting Moon Immortal sect used to be. Yes, we will find Gu Qingshan here. Gu Qingshan said. He waved his hand behind him. Shanu appeared from the void of space and lightly landed in front of Gu Qingshan. Gongzi, I understand, you need me to act as the Divine King, Shanu said. Leave the loading of the order to me, just do your best as the Divine King and make sure to keep an eye on me, Gu Qingshan told her. Got it, Shanu replied. Shanu's power came from the Grand Tai Wei Mountain, so she could use it whenever she wanted, unlike Gu Qingshan who had to constantly challenge other combatants to accumulate soul points. She activated Mystery of All Beings Equal and quickly turned into a divinity with a blue flame burning between his eyebrows. The frigid aura around this blue flame divinity turned into ice crystals that glowed with a myriad of colors under the illumination of the light, giving off a sense of holiness. This was the god of frost and chill. All right, now it's my turn to dispel resonance, Gu Qing-shan said a bit reluctantly. His appearance slowly changed and returned to his original appearance. Luo Bingley was intrigued and couldn't help but ask, "You've planned for so long, spent so much effort, and even carried the Demon King order. What exactly is your goal?" Gu Qing-shan replied, "Of course it's to obtain the Heaven Sword." Saying so, he began to think of a strategy to deal with the situation. "When the figure of light returns, I'll have to carry the order. Both in this life and the past life, I'm already very familiar with the Demon King order. Once I carry it again, I'll be able to use it without any problems. With the Demon King order's help, my strength will once again rapidly increase. The main question is whether or not I want to become the Demon King. If I go past the figure of light's bottom line and become the Demon King, I'll definitely ruin the entire plan. But doing so will awaken the other orders." With that in mind, Gu Qing-shan couldn't help but put her hand on her inventory bag. Large-scale war system. Water God was sleeping peacefully in the storage bag. If Water God awakens, Gu Qing-shan thought for a while and sighed. "No. My goal is to save the Earth Sword. Only after the Earth Sword is saved will I be able to decide whether or not to do anything else based on the situation." Gu Qing-shan silently made up her mind. At this point, Luo Bingley asked, "After you obtain the Heaven Sword, will you help the divine race or humanity?" Gu Qing-shan looked at her. Luo Bingley smiled bitterly. "You're really good at being the divine king. I even feel like you're more suited to be the divine race." Gu Qing-shan chuckled and shook her head. Who would have thought that the trick she used to deceive the divine race would actually cause even her own people to waver? "That won't do," Gu Qing-shan patiently explained. "You don't need to take it to heart. In truth, I'll definitely stand on humanity's side. After all, I'm a human cultivator." Luo Bingley asked. "That means after you obtain the Heaven Sword, you'll go on a killing spree and eliminate all beings that aren't human?" Gu Qing-shan replied, "Killing people, or killing anything else, I'm not interested. I only want to save the Earth Sword." Luo Bingley thought for a bit, then asked, "The Earth Sword? Wait a minute, didn't you already obtain it? What happened to it?" "It's heavily wounded, its artifact spirit could disappear at any moment, so my Shifu used a temporal technique to seal it away to stall for time. I heard that only the Heaven Sword can save the Earth Sword, so I need to find the Heaven Sword." Luo Bingley seriously listened to her and sighed emotionally. "We already know the truth. The twin swords Heaven and Earth are actually components of a certain weapon from the eternal abyss. At the very last moment, you will most likely have to face the mastermind of everything, the eternal true deity." Soul Shrieker Gu Qing-shan replied, "I will gather the power of the 3 coins and try my best to escape from it." "What if you can't escape?" Luo Bingley asked. "Then we'll fight to the death." Gu Qing-shan shrugged. "Is it worth it to die to obtain the twin swords Heaven and Earth?" "It's not like that. It would be great if I can obtain the Heaven Sword, but if I can't, as long as I can fulfill my wish, I'll be satisfied." "What is your wish?" Luo Bingley asked. "The Earth Salvation Sword. It's my sword," Gu Qing-shan replied. Luo Bingley was a bit surprised, then lowered her head and said nothing else. Shanu suddenly said, "It's here, in the sky." A blinding flash of light appeared. The figure of light descended from above. He looked at Gu Qing-shan, then at the Divine King, the God of Frost and Chill. "Your Majesty, have you reached an agreement with him?" the figure of light asked. Shanu, "No." The Divine King puffed out his chest and spoke seriously. "This king will help Gu Qing-shan find the Heaven Sword, while Gu Qing-shan, as the carrier of the order, will help this king obtain the power of the Demon King order. This is our agreement. It's very fair," Gu Qing-shan added. The figure of light looked at her, his presence slowly becoming more and more intense. Gu Qing-shan calmly replied, "I understand that you're restraining yourself, telling yourself not to kill me, but I have to say this very seriously. If the divine race wants to obtain the power of the order, please try to restrain yourself." The figure of light spoke in a low voice. Do you think you can evolve the order to the stage where the Demon King ascension can be achieved by yourself? That's why I still need the help of the divine race. Helping me is the same as helping yourself obtain the power of the order. I'm sure you won't refuse, Gu Qingshan replied. The figure of light spoke. Then, if you can't evolve the order to the stage where the Demon King ascension can be achieved, I'll die, Gu Qingshan casually replied. The figure of light was finally satisfied. He looked at the Divine King. The Divine King smiled and did not say anything. He only nodded at it. The figure of light couldn't help but shake his head, still in disbelief. This was truly an unprecedented moment in history. The divine race had always stood at the top of humanity. But today, the divine race had taken an unprecedented path and made an agreement with a human cultivator. The Divine King was willing to put down his pride and make a deal with a human for the sake of the fate of his race. In the entire history of the divine race, this Divine King was probably the only one who could think of such a method and do such a thing. Perhaps he really could change the fate of the divine race. The figure of light was a bit excited and asked, "Your Majesty, when do we begin?" "Right now," the Divine King decisively answered. "Gu Qingshan, do you have any questions?" The figure of light asked. "Time is precious, let's begin." Gu Qingshan was just as straightforward. The figure of light went silent for a brief moment. "Now that it's come to this, put your hand on mine," he told Gu Qingshan. Gu Qingshan did as he said. A pair of glowing white wings suddenly spread open behind the figure of light's back. Below the sky, above the ruins, the figure of light raised his voice and loudly chanted a divine incantation. The infinite world's apocalypse, the evil order, the kindling of life, the origin of all things, the revolution of living beings. You are the crystallization of civilization, the master of the demon tide, the essence of the Demon King's descent. Come, I summon you to this place on behalf of your lamb, the Demon King order. Descend. Ho! An invisible gust of wind blew. Heaven and earth returned to silence. Something seemed to have manifested from the unseen world. They didn't have to wait too long. A blood-red UI suddenly appeared in front of Gu Qingshan's eyes. Lines of glowing text appeared on the UI. "Welcome, human cultivator, you've received the favor of the order. The order will complete loading in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. World's apocalypse online. Kindling, loading complete. Congratulations. With the help of the order, you shall rebuild the glory of humanity." Gu Qingshan looked at the blood-red UI in front of him. This blood-red UI contained too many memories and memories of his life. Many of them had already passed. He had grown into an excellent sword cultivator. Chapter 872. On top of the ruins, the figure of light, the god of frost, and Luo Bingli all looked at Gu Qingshan. The only thing missing from the 3 coins was the power of the Demon King order. Now, it's all up to him. Gu Qingshan stared at the void of space in front of him, seemingly focused on something. He didn't say a word, but his expression slowly became a bit surprised. All of a sudden, a red streak of light appeared out of nowhere and entered his body. "What is this? What happened to you?" The god of frost couldn't help but ask. Gu Qingshan waved his hand, gesturing that he was fine. Luo Bingli glanced at the god of frost. The god of frost immediately realized and spoke with a stern tone. "Gu Qingshan, if you back down now, this king's agreement with you will immediately be voided." The figure of light cut in. "Do not worry, Your Majesty, the order is currently manifesting on him, there won't be any issues. He is only communicating with the order." For the first time the god of frost scoffed. "That's good, but are we going to just wait here?" The figure of light replied. "We do need to wait for a bit." The god of frost said nothing else. They continued to wait. Gu Qingshan was indeed communicating with the Demon King order. As a veteran who had carried the order twice, Gu Qingshan knew exactly what was going to happen next. The order would examine his personal strength, then activate it accordingly and issue him various missions. As the missions were completed, the order's functions would be unlocked. Once the order had accumulated enough soul points, it would upgrade. The upgraded order would provide its carrier with even more power and functions. This was a mutually reinforcing process, but as the Demon King order, it would take the majority of the soul points and treat the carrier like a parasite. However, there weren't many people in the entire primordial heaven realm who carried the order. Once someone did, they would be killed right away. Then, how would the order deal with such a situation? Gu Qingshan was silently curious. While he was waiting, lines of crimson text appeared on the blood-red UI. The order is currently performing a full scan on you. Scan detected abnormalities. Your Excellency's unique identity has been discovered. Begin identification. In the void, a blazing red light suddenly appeared. The red light entered Gu Qingshan's body and only dissipated after a few breaths. This was the scene that caused the Frost God Monarch to cry out. The blood-red words disappeared. Kindling's voice rang in Gu Qingshan's ears. Venerable Envoy of Condemnation, we welcome you to fight alongside the Order. The Order will tailor the corresponding combat missions according to your strength, Your Excellency. There seemed to be a hint of intimacy in its voice. Gu Qingshan was stunned. Envoy of Condemnation? Wasn't this his card form? Little Dusk gave me a card identity, but I didn't expect to receive the attention of Order here. Thinking back to his past life, there were a few card users that appeared, but he had never heard of them receiving special treatment from Order. It seemed that Xiaoxi's identity played a role. She came from the bygone era, but lost all of her memories, so she was deceived by the divine race and worked for them. If the Order truly viewed the Envoy of Condemnation so highly, then it could be inferred that the Envoy of Condemnation was an extraordinary identity during the bygone era. Thinking back on it, card combat should have been classified as mystic type, because cards themselves were existences that couldn't be measured with common sense. Even the large-scale war god system, Water God, before she evolved into World's Apocalypse Online, Human Legion, she was only a card. These thoughts quickly flashed through Gu Qingshan's mind. He inhaled and replied to the Order. What should we do now? When you need to converse with me, please refer to me as the Kindling. Until I evolve, the Order replied. Very well, Kindling, what should we do now? Gu Qingshan asked. Observing the current environment, generating the first quest. The current environment is in a state of equilibrium, easily breaking it will draw the avatar of a powerful entity that can destroy everything, so the Order will temporarily change tactics. The first quest has been generated. Lines of blood-red text slowly appeared on the UI. Quest: Invade the Wraith Realm. Quest description: The primordial Wraith Realm is a place of constant war. Ever since it was destroyed, powerful evil creatures have taken over the fragments of the Wraith Realm. They compete for each other's fragments, desiring to fuse the fragments together to obtain powerful world origin power. To obtain the power to evolve, you must join the battle. Quest objective: Enter the Wraith Realm, join a faction, and win the first battle. Quest reward: Kindling's first function has been activated. Now, the quest begins. Special note: in order to become the legendary Demon King of Condemnation, do your best, Your Excellency. Gu Qingshan read through everything in one go. And it's doing my best. Since when did the Demon King Order become so easy to talk to? He shook his head, moved his gaze away from the void of space, and looked at the others. Did it go smoothly? The figure of light asked. Gu Qingshan looked at it. This figure of light doesn't know that I'm an envoy of condemnation. Most likely, they only found the Angel of Condemnation because of the secret connection between the coin and Little Dusk. And I'm only an envoy of condemnation. In other words, the divine race doesn't know about the secret connection between the envoy of condemnation and the order. Gu Qingshan calmed down a bit and replied, "Everything went smoothly. A kindling has now issued me the first quest, asking me to go to the Wraith Realm." To the Wraith Realm? Everyone asked at once. Gu Qingshan explained, "That's right, the primordial heaven realm is currently under the Soul Shrieker's strict surveillance, so it's not suitable for a large-scale battle. Kindling needs to draw power from battle. That's why I want to go to the Wraith Realm, join the ranks of the evil creatures and fight," the figure of light spoke. "You're human, so you'll be rejected by the evil creatures as soon as you go to the Wraith Realm. That's a big problem." Gu Qingshan looked at it and replied, "You've been chasing me for so long without being able to catch me, I naturally have a way to deal with that." The Divine King of Frost and Frost asked, "What else do you need?" "I don't need anything for now, just help me open the gate to the Wraith Realm," Gu Qingshan replied. "That's no problem, I've just been to a Wraith Realm fragment not too long ago and looked up the method to enter that Wraith Realm," the figure of light replied. It raised its voice and chanted loudly, "The Xie Realm, the lost abyss of bliss of all evil creatures, open your gate for me." An invisible gate that gave off a faint light appeared from the void of space. This was the warp gate to the Xie Fiend Realm. "Then I'll be on my way," Gu Qingshan said. The Divine King of Frost and Frost couldn't help but exclaim, "No, you can't go alone. I want to watch over you." The figure of light tried to persuade her. "Your Majesty, you're a divinity. If you appear in the Wraith Realm, you'll cause even more trouble. The evil creatures all hate us, they'll surely gather all of their forces to kill you." Gu Qingshan winked at the Divine King and said, "Don't worry, since you've agreed to help me find the Heaven Sword, I'll naturally do what I must." "That's right, the human cultivator Luo Bingley, you must protect her well, because she's related to the Heaven Sword's final whereabouts." "Don't worry, this king knows what to do," the Divine King of Frost and Frost replied. The figure of light also nodded in agreement. "Then I'll be on my way." Saying so, Gu Qingshan's figure had already entered the warp gate and disappeared from the primordial heaven realm. The Divine King of Frost and Frost was stunned. "Your Majesty?" The figure of light doubtfully looked at him and asked. I just remembered something," the Divine King replied. "What is it?" the figure of light asked. "As you know, when we were first created, we were meant to cooperate with humanity in battle indeed. I know that," the figure of light nodded. The Divine King's tone changed a bit. "If it's a battle, I'm wondering if we can use this method to win against the desolate race." "Your Majesty, you mean, to complete our plan, we must try to help Gu Qingshan." Luo Bingley silently listened on one side and couldn't help but sigh. At another location, Gu Qingshan was flying through the void of space. He had used all of his soul points to take on the appearance of the Xie Fiend King. This was a jet-black Fiend King with a handsome face. He looked a lot like a human, but had a long, sharp tail on his back. If it weren't for this tail, the Xie Fiend King would even look a bit weak. This appearance made Gu Qingshan feel a bit uncomfortable. A Fiend King with this appearance. I really can't help but feel a bit uneasy. Gu Qingshan moved his body uneasily, wanting to dispel the feminine feeling around him. He began to recall the last time he came to the Wraith Realm. The last time he came to the Xie Fiend Realm, humanity had already gone extinct. It was the end of the Age of Old. At the time, the Xie Fiend Realm and even the Xie Fiend King's woman had fallen into the Bitter Bone Devil King's hands. The Xie Fiend King was nothing but a puppet. While Gu Qingshan was thinking, a flash of light appeared in front of him. "I've arrived at the Xie Fiend Realm." Gu Qingshan flew towards that flash of light. As soon as he touched the light, the void of space around him faded away. Gu Qingshan found that he had entered a dark sky and was rapidly falling. He hurriedly stopped his body and let himself descend slowly. Below him was a luxurious castle. This was a very familiar sight. "Isn't this the Xie Fiend King's castle?" At this point in time, humanity had only just gone through a great war, and the first divinity had only just fallen much earlier than that. I wonder how the Xie Fiend King is doing at this point in time. That's a very important question, since I'm about to impersonate him again. Gu Qing Shan's figure flashed and used ground shrink to appear in front of the castle. He immediately saw an evil fiend. It was the Xie Fiend King. I didn't think I'd run into him as soon as I arrived. The Xie Fiend King was kneeling on a washboard, crying towards a certain location in the castle. I beg you, trust me just this once, I really won't hide any more money. Chapter 873. Looking at the crying Xie Fiend King, Gu Qing Shan couldn't help but feel speechless. This guy, how did he become a Fiend King? At this point, the Xie Fiend King saw Gu Qing Shan. The same black skin, the same handsome face, the same long spiky tail. I don't know where this guy came from, but he looks exactly the same as me. The Xie Fiend King was stunned and couldn't help but ask, "Who are you?" Gu Qing Shan replied. "Take a guess," the Xie Fiend King shouted. "This king has no siblings, what kind of trick are you trying to pull?" Saying so, he stood up as his presence began to rise. Siblings? This caught Gu Qing Shan's attention. Gu Qing Shan put her index finger on her lips and shushed him, then winked at the Xie Fiend King. The Xie Fiend King was confused. As if the other party had something to tell him, he could only hold back and not attack right away. Gu Qing Shan spoke with a serious expression. "You're already kneeling but you're standing up, wouldn't that offend the powerful entity in the castle?" The Xie Fiend King regained his senses. He hurriedly knelt down on the washboard again. Gu Qing Shan. "Seems like this guy is hopeless. Perfect, I need a suitable identity to stay in the Wraith realm." The Xie Fiend King turned around and asked in a low voice, "Tell me, who exactly are you?" Gu Qing Shan sighed. "Although it's embarrassing to say this, I'm still your big brother," the Xie Fiend King angrily shouted. "Bullshit! I have no siblings." Boom! A giant hand descended from above and slammed the Xie Fiend King to the ground. The giant hand scattered and turned into countless flying swords. Several of the flying swords left the hand and stabbed into the Xie Fiend King's limbs, pinning him to the ground. "Arg!" The Xie Fiend King screamed in pain. Gu Qing Shan slowly walked towards the Xie Fiend King, allowing the hundreds of flying swords to form a pair of wings on his back. Presently, he was already a void-seeing realm cultivator, and his swordsmanship had also advanced to the sword immortal realm. He was far from being comparable to the first time he invaded the devil realm. "Tell me, do you have a brother or not?" Gu Qing Shan looked down at the Xie Fiend King and asked. The Xie Fiend King shouted, "I do! I have it!" "Come, call me big brother," Gu Qing Shan said. "Brother!" Shout again. "Brother! My eldest brother! Spare me!" At this moment, 7 or 8 guards rushed out of the castle. Gu Qing Shan did not raise her head. Among the flying swords floating behind him, a few moon-white sword lights flashed. The guard was slashed by the sword light, and not even his flesh was left behind. Notifications popped up on the bloody interface. Obtained 10 soul points, obtained 7 soul points, obtained 9 soul points. Gu Qing Shan glanced at the interface and nodded. The Demon King order was different from the War God UI. For the War God UI, Gu Qing Shan would only receive soul points if he killed an enemy who was at least as strong as himself. If the enemy she killed was too weak, the War God UI wouldn't even take soul points from them. But the Demon King order was different. To obtain enough soul points to advance, it was willing to do anything. The smell of blood and commotion in front of the castle drew the attention of many evil creatures. More and more evil creatures were heading here. Gu Qing Shan grabbed the void of space and took the Chao Yin sword in her hand. The sword lightly stabbed the Xie Fiend King's throat. Tell me the truth, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Gu Qingshan muttered. Feeling the cold sword chi at his throat, the Xie Fiend King shivered. This guy is ridiculously strong. Just when did I make such a powerful enemy? It can't be helped, my life is in his hands, how can I not lower my head? Fortunately, the Xie Fiend King was also a Fiend King who had been through a lot, so this wasn't the first time he was in a situation like this. The Xie Fiend King smiled brightly. You're right, I actually have quite a few brothers and sisters. Gu Qingshan scowled. Ah? Why do I remember that you only have a brother? That's right, I was wrong, I have a brother. The Xie Fiend King hurriedly followed up. Gu Qingshan nodded in satisfaction. But he pushed the sword a bit deeper, almost cutting through the Xie Fiend King's skin. The Xie Fiend King hurriedly shouted, Big brother, you're my real brother, please forgive me. Since you can't even recognize me as your brother, I'll punish you by making you apologize to me, only when I'm satisfied will I forgive you, Gu Qingshan said. The Xie Fiend King sighed in relief. He was quite good at apologizing. A big brother, we haven't seen each other for so long, it's normal for me to not recognize you right away, don't be angry big brother, I'll be welcoming you tonight, let's have a good drink. If you're still angry, just punish me with a few more drinks, I won't refuse big brother. The Xie Fiend King smiled and tried to flatter Gu Qingshan. At this point, quite a few evil creatures had already arrived to witness this scene. More and more evil creatures came to watch. Quite a few evil creatures also came out from the castle and surrounded the two of them. Very quickly, all the evil creatures noticed something. The Xie Fiend King had a powerful brother. At this point, Gu Qingshan put her sword away and crouched down in front of the Xie Fiend King. I'm very curious about something, a big brother, please ask, the Xie Fiend King replied. Why was it you, my little brother, who obtained the Xie Fiend realm and not me? Gu Qingshan asked. The Xie Fiend King was surprised. That's a very imaginative question. But then, I can't come up with anything. While the Xie Fiend King was hesitating, his eyes met with Gu Qingshan's. In the other party's eyes, countless sword shadows surged ceaselessly. An eye attack technique? The Xie Fiend King's heart skipped a beat. He was still a Fiend King, so he still had his eyes. There had never been a weak spell technique that could be unleashed using one's eyes, and it was basically unavoidable. He finally understood how terrifying the other party was. Even the entity inside the castle might not be able to defeat this guy. At this moment, the Xie Fiend King felt an intense sense of death. Under the pressure of danger, he was able to perform at a much higher level than normal and shouted, Big brother, did you forget? The Xie Fiend realm was clearly yours before. You went to conquer other fiend realms, and told me to watch over it for you before you left. All was quiet. The evil creatures exchanged glances. Something like that actually happened? Gu Qingshan nodded in satisfaction. He then asked, Do you really not know what's happening inside the castle? The Xie Fiend King smirked. That's the fiend's freedom, I can't do anything about it. Gu Qingshan pondered a bit and looked at him. He patted the Xie Fiend King's shoulder and said, Little brother, you truly are a disgrace to our family. A sword gleam flashed. The Xie Fiend King's head fell off his body and rolled to one side. Before he died, the Xie Fiend King still had a bit of confusion on his face. Why did he kill me? He clearly knew that I was nothing but a puppet waiting to die. There was no reason for him to kill me, so why did he do it? Unfortunately, he'll never be able to understand this. Following the Xie Fiend King's death, a notification came into Gu Qingshan's ears. He looked at the kindling UI. Lines of blood-red text appeared on the UI one after another. You've been recognized by the Xie Fiend King in front of everyone. You've obtained a new identity, Xie Fiend King's older brother, thus joining the Xie Fiend realm. You've killed the Xie Fiend King. you've won the battle. Quest completed. The first function of the kindling UI has been activated. From now on, you may use the primary grocery store. At this point, the blood-red text abruptly disappeared. Following that, kindling, continued frowny face due to your esteemed identity, this grocery store will be closed immediately. This order has converted the first function into the center of the card. From now on, all functions will be displayed here. Please draw the card for the first time, Your Excellency, Gu Qing-shan silently asked. What should I do? Kindling replied. If Your Excellency is trustworthy, I will draw the card for you. If Your Excellency wishes to play with it yourself, I will arrange it, Gu Qing-shan replied. Go ahead, thank you for your trust, Your Excellency. I have made meticulous preparations according to your card rank, Kindling replied. A lapis card appeared on the blood-red UI. A pitch-black armor was drawn on the front of the card, and boundless black mist lingered on it. The armor exuded a sense of majesty and mystery. I can tell this is a good item. But now that the Xieqi Fiend King had just died and the evil creatures were all over the place, Gu Qing-shan didn't have time to carefully examine this card. He put the card away first, stood up, and told the silent evil creatures, "Those who want to watch the show back off, don't blame me if you die next." Hordes of devils hurriedly retreated. This ominous fiend even killed his own little brother. Who knows what else he's going to do next? But a few evil creatures still held on to their own strength and didn't retreat just yet. Gu Qing-shan looked into the castle. A cruel smile appeared on his jet-black face. "Cruel Bone Devil King, why aren't you coming out yet?" Gu Qing-shan's voice resounded across the entire area. That's right, when the Xieqi Fiend King begged for mercy, he had already noticed something being spied on. This spying was infused with powerful dark elemental presence, filled with malice and malice. "With just you," a female voice full of provocation resounded. The female voice continued, "Seems like I'll have to kill him myself." Her voice suddenly became lower, as if she was stopped by someone. Gu Qing-shan only smiled and said nothing. At this point, another lazy voice resounded. "Are you really his brother? I don't care about what happened between you two brothers, seeing how much strength you have. Get out of this wraith realm, and I won't kill you." The evil creatures all clamored. It really is the cruel Bone Devil King. So this place has already been taken over by him. Even the fiendess is now his subordinate. But then, why didn't he just kill the Xieqi Fiend King? The evil creatures all began to speculate. So that's why. The evil creatures all exchanged indescribable glances. Things like hats are always interesting, especially among evil creatures. That makes sense. Think about it from another perspective. No wonder this Xieqi Fiend King's brother said that the Xieqi Fiend King was the shame of their family. No wonder he killed his little brother. Get out of this wraith realm? No, that won't do. Gu Qing-shan slowly spoke. With a single thought, the two giant wings of swords behind his back spread out, turning into streaks of light that flew through the air. Intense sword-infused wind rose to the sky. "Cruel Bone Devil King, leave your life and soul, they are both my food. I am the true Fiend King of this wraith realm." Chapter 874. Gu Qing-shan, who had taken on the appearance of a Xieqi Fiend King, roared. Unlike the last time he came to the wraith realm, he didn't give the other party any time to waste. Several hundred flying swords flew back and forth across the castle. Gu Qing-shan formed a hand seal. "Tai sword array, rise!" The sword-infused wind scattered and swept across the entire castle. In a single breath's worth of time, the entire castle was erased by the wind. All the buildings, all the fiend guards were gone. The ground was as flat as a mirror. This was nothing short of a spectacle. The evil creatures all clicked their tongues. Only the fiendess and the cruel Bone Devil King were still standing in the air. Their expressions became heavy as they stared at the scene in front of them. "Too strong. The other party is too strong." The fiendess spoke in a low voice. Devil King, this bastard who came out of nowhere seems to be quite strong. The cruel bone Devil King glared at Gu Qingshan. Are you the true master of the Xieqi Fiend realm? He asked. Gu Qingshan replied. That's right, I originally left this place to my little brother, but who knew he would be so stupid that he deserved to die? I'll return this Wraith realm to you. From now on, we'll mind our own business, the cruel bone Devil King declared. You've taken over this place for so long, taking so much of this world's income, and now you want to just leave? Aren't you looking down on this king a bit too much? Gu Qingshan asked. Then what do you want? I want the elemental origins of 2 Wraith realms, this Wraith realm and your own Wraith realm, then I'll allow you to live. The cruel bone Devil King was surprised and angrily shouted. Damn it, you think I'm afraid of you? Ho! A gust of wind blew past. His limbs were all cut off by the sword-infused wind as his body fell to the ground. He couldn't even defeat Gu Qingshan last time, and now that Gu Qingshan had improved so much, he was even less of a threat. One last chance, Gu Qingshan coldly said. On the ground in front of him, the cruel bone Devil King said nothing and continued to regrow his limbs. But he found to his horror that his wounds couldn't heal at all. Blood, flesh, and even spirit energy were leaking out from his wounds. I'm about to die. I'll give it to you, he shouted. This is the correct answer. As Gu Qingshan said this, she cancelled the effect of the emerald skill Bleed. Skill card, Bleed. After equipping this card, whenever you cut the enemy's body with a sharp weapon, the enemy's fillings such as flesh, blood, steel, psychic power, spiritual energy, etc., will gradually disappear from the enemy's body for 10 seconds. Just like last time, faced with overwhelming power, the cruel bone Devil King reluctantly handed over the 5 elemental origin of 2 demon realms. Very well, you can go now, Gu Qingshan said. The cruel bone Devil King stared at him for a long time, then chanted an incantation to open a warp gate. Let's go, he told the demoness. The demoness did not move. The cruel bone Devil King glared at her. The demoness smiled. All right, Lord Ghost King, let me help you. While supporting the cruel bone Devil King, she suddenly took out a dagger and beheaded the Devil King. The gate of light disappeared. The demoness carried the Devil King's head, slowly walked in front of Gu Qingshan, and respectfully knelt down. She raised the Devil King's head, smiled seductively at Gu Qingshan, and spoke in a tender voice. New master of the Xieqi Fiend realm and cruel bone Devil realm, I offer you the head of my enemy, and submit myself to you. Gu Qingshan stared closely at the demoness. It really must be said, this was a beautiful demoness. Not only did she have a delicate face, but her body as well as every tiny movement she made exuded a sense of seduction that could seduce anyone. Gu Qingshan was silently confused. Last time I killed her so quickly that I didn't notice a few things. She seems to be a demoness with a background. Gu Qingshan had spent quite a bit of time in the Wraith realm, fought quite a few battles, and even met the 3 most powerful Fiend Kings, so she could already guess a few things. The demoness seems to be a disciple of that Fiend King. After all, only that one person was proficient in this type of seduction technique. What do you want from me? Gu Qingshan asked. The demoness lowered her head and spoke with a hint of nervousness and shyness. I am willing to follow by your side and listen to any of your orders, powerful Fiend King. Very well, Gu Qingshan nodded. So you agree? The demoness joyfully looked up. She threw away the head that ruined the atmosphere away, knelt down, and moved a few inches forward on her knees to get closer to Gu Qingshan. Indeed, I have an order that I need you to obey, Gu Qingshan said. Just tell me, I will listen to you, the demoness softly replied. She reached out her pink tongue and seductively licked the corner of her mouth. Any male would be able to understand what she was trying to say. Gu Qingshan looked down at her and asked, I said I would let the cruel bone Devil King go, but you killed him instead. Why? The demoness froze. Gu Qingshan replied, Die in peace, Sha. A flash of sword gleam. The demoness was cut into pieces, then swept away by the sword-infused wind and disappeared from this world. Many regretful voices came from all around. But the evil creatures here had already rationally lowered their voices. Don't be ridiculous, this powerful Xie fiend was ridiculously strong. But even more frightening was the fact that he didn't hesitate to kill even his own little brother, not even sparing a beauty like the Demoness, truly cruel and merciless. The evil creatures couldn't even guess what he was thinking. This was a dangerous guy full of uncertainty. At this point, Gu Qingshan turned around and looked at the evil creatures. "Disperse," he said. The evil creatures all scattered. In just a few moments, not a single evil creature could be seen within a few miles. It was now that Gu Qingshan looked at the kindling UI. Lines of new prompts appeared on the interface. Frowny face. This was a one-sided battle. The enemy's soul power is still intact. You can absorb a total of. Esteemed Sir, Kindling has detected that you have an extremely rare unique talent. Unlimited soul points. From now on, you can absorb all of your soul points without wasting. Total soul points obtained, 28,000. Now you must make the following choice. Use Battle EXP to level up, or soul points to level up. You can only choose one of the two. Gu Qingshan couldn't help but chuckle. EXP soul points. This choice was all too familiar to him. Gu Qingshan purposely asked, "Is there a difference?" Kindling patiently replied, "You can use EXP to level up at any time, but if you choose to use soul points to level up, you will need to complete the quest to activate this function." Kindling suggests that you use soul points to level up, as you have the rare talent to absorb soul points infinitely. Using soul points to increase your strength is the most suitable path for you. Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised. When did the Demon King order become so sincere? It even knows how to be considerate for others? Gu Qingshan agreed. Alright, I'll use soul points to level up. A new quest appeared on the Kindling UI. Frowny face. Now issuing the function activation quest. Quest description. Obtain enough soul points to help the system activate soul points level up mode. Quest objective. Please obtain another 72,000 soul points to reach 100,000 soul points to help Kindling activate its level up mode. Quest reward. Soul points level up mode. Special note. You have chosen the correct path. You will definitely become the strongest existence through this path. The order shares your glory. When all the text disappeared, a card appeared at the center of the UI. On the card, Gu Qingshan wielded a sword with both hands, hovering in the air. Lapis Grade True Self card. Sword Cultivator. Gu Qingshan. Below the True Self card, there was a long gray bar, which looked like a soul power value. From the looks of it, this was the soul points level up mode waiting to be activated. Gu Qingshan silently nodded. In comparison, the War God UI's requirements were much higher. Not only did it require him to kill powerful enemies, he also had to spend soul points to comprehend and advance. But the Demon King Order's specialty was that it was unscrupulous, regardless of how strong or weak the enemy was. As long as it killed an enemy, it would be able to absorb the power of their soul. This could easily break the persistence in a person's heart, turning them into an existence that only knows how to kill. Between the War God and the Demon King, one focused more on willpower, while the other only desired power. From the perspective of sharpening willpower and improving one's fighting prowess, the War God UI's method was much more profound. Although the War God was already gone, Gu Qingshan knew that he wouldn't turn into a Demon King of Slaughter, so he wasn't afraid of being changed by the Demon King order. 100,000 soul points, Gu Qingshan muttered and began to think about how to deal with this quest. He naturally wouldn't go and kill those weak evil creatures. He craved for true combat. That's why the armor was a must. Gu Qingshan immediately recalled the first quest's reward, that battle armor card. It seems the Kindling had already prepared for the upcoming battle. Gu Qingshan drew the card. Chapter 875. Gu Qingshan took out the lapis card and placed it on the kindling UI. As his gaze fell onto the card, the black fog that covered the entire card slowly gathered and manifested as a suit of armor that exuded black smoke. Immediately, the rekindling UI began to explain this card: frowny face lapis weapon card, black smog armor, full set. A description. The black smog armor is the prototype of the Demon King's armor. Although it has only been completed, it already possesses a lot of defensive capabilities. This armor has the following characteristics: toughness. Every time the armor receives damage, it will be shared by the entire armor. Self-repair. The armor will automatically repair itself whenever it's damaged. The speed of repair depends on the amount of soul points you expend. Black smog embrace. When you stand still, the black smog will conceal your whereabouts. Only enemies 2 realms higher than you will be able to detect you. Reading through this description, Gu Qingshan slowly sighed. As a sword cultivator, he really needed a reliable set of armor. Someone lent him a set of armor last time, but that was a family heirloom, and that cultivator even died because of it, so Gu Qingshan wasn't shameless enough to ask for a set of armor from them. And now, he finally had a set of armor that belonged to him. Gu Qingshan took out this card and placed it on top of the lapis card. Sword Cultivator Gu Qingshan, just like Little Dusk did. The card then disappeared. At the same time, a set of armor that exuded black smoke appeared out of thin air. Although this set of armor gave off an evil aura that seemed to devour everything, the armor's elegant design gave off a sense of nobility and elegance, which was quite unexpected. As soon as the armor appeared, it scattered into countless components that quickly circled around Gu Qingshan. The entire set of armor was donned in a single breath's worth of time. As soon as Gu Qingshan put on this set of armor, he seemed a bit more mysterious. He casually moved around and found that the armor was both sturdy and light, fitting perfectly with his body and didn't affect his movements at all. This was even rarer. Suddenly, a voice as heavy as a mountain sounded. "What do you plan to do next?" Gu Qingshan answered naturally, "Of course it's to fight on the battlefield." As soon as he finished speaking, he was stunned. This voice. Gu Qingshan tapped her inventory bag, took out a long box and quickly opened it. The Earth Sword. The cracked Earth Sword was still lying inside. "You're awake? How do you feel?" Gu Qingshan asked in a deep voice. He noticed that the magical fluctuations around the Earth Sword had completely disappeared. In other words, Xie Daoling's time freeze technique had lost its effect. The Earth Sword was already on the verge of collapsing, and now that the temporal technique used to protect it had disappeared, it could enter a state of rapid destruction at any moment. The Earth Sword replied, "I can't move right now because I'll probably die if I do." Gu Qingshan replied, "Don't worry, I will definitely help you recover as soon as possible." "How fast?" the Earth Sword asked. "As soon as possible," Gu Qingshan said. "Men can't be faster than women." The Earth Sword was breathing heavily. Gu Qingshan was a bit surprised and couldn't help but facepalm. This sword is already about to shatter, yet it still likes to talk trash like this. "Enough already," the Earth Sword continued. "In truth, after you entered this phantom image, I had already slowly awakened and saw what you did. Why didn't you say anything earlier?" Gu Qingshan asked. "At the time, it was a bit hard to talk, but now that I've grasped the technique to send my voice in a broken state, I can finally communicate with you again," the Earth Sword replied. Gu Qingshan went silent. Suddenly, flying swords gradually appeared behind him. They were the flying swords of the sword cultivators who died on the front lines, a total of 699 of them. All the flying swords let out a mournful cry. The Chao Yin sword also appeared from the void of space. It flew around the Earth Sword, occasionally letting out a reluctant woo-woo sound. Gu Qingshan froze. What does that mean? Could it be? Gu Qingshan's heart slowly sank into the bottomless abyss. "Tell me, what's your current state?" He tried his best to ask with a calm voice. The Earth Sword replied, I'm fine, I'll probably be fine until you actually find a girlfriend. Gu Qingshan pursed his lip. He could hear a sense of strain from the Earth Sword's voice. The Earth Sword was already feeling a bit strained after only saying a few words. Gu Qingshan's eyes twitched a bit as he looked at the kindling UI. The order had always had the most basic function, which was to display items. At this point, lines of blood-red text appeared on the kindling UI. Frowny face Earth Sword, weighs 86,370,000 tons, has the artifact Spirit Thaumaturgy. Bear your own weight, this sword is on the verge of shattering, artifact spirit is about to perish. Gu Qingshan silently read these 2 lines of blood-red text and asked kindling, how much longer can it last? Kindling replied, the order is currently in its nascent state, it's a bit hard to check the sword's current state, please pay 1,000 soul points. Pay very well, the order is currently checking, the results of the investigation are out. In 1 day it will completely collapse. 1 day. Gu Qingshan felt like all the blood in his body was about to freeze. 1 day isn't enough time to do anything. He stared blankly at the Earth Sword, unable to say anything. At this point the Earth Sword seemed to have noticed and spoke. Gu Qingshan, you don't need to save me anymore, why not? Gu Qingshan blankly asked. Because if you save me, you'll be abandoning your path, the Earth Sword replied. My path? Gu Qingshan didn't quite understand. That's right, you're a sword cultivator, not a killing machine. Even if you fell into the Wraith realm to save me and fought against countless evil creatures, the more you fight against them, the more you'll look like an evil creature. The Earth Sword's voice was full of worry. Not to mention, you've once again carried the Demon King order. What it wants to nurture is a Demon King, not a sword cultivator, so it must be constantly trying to change you. Don't worry, I won't be changed, Gu Qingshan replied. The Earth Sword continued. For when a person fights against an evil dragon for too long, they'll also become an evil dragon. When a person falls into the Demon King order, and the evil creatures, they'll eventually become one of them. The Earth Sword sighed, then continued. Gu Qingshan, I hope that you'll always be a sword cultivator, not an evil creature. Gu Qingshan, you don't need to fight against the evil creatures to save me, and don't make any deals with the Demon King order. As long as you maintain the heart of a sword cultivator, as your sword, I can die without regrets. Gu Qingshan silently listened. These were most likely the Earth Sword's last words. It didn't want him to get involved again. Gu Qingshan stayed silent for a bit, then muttered, Rest well, after you've recovered, you'll fight by my side. Saying so, he closed the box, carefully sealed it, and put it back into his inventory bag. Following that, he took out a large map and spread it out at his feet. This was a map of the Wraith Realm that he left behind during his previous trip to the Wraith Realm. Such a map was worth enough to exchange for a large amount of resources in the Wraith Realm. On the map, several thousand Wraith Realms were scattered all over the place. But if you take a closer look, you'll notice that these scattered Wraith Realms were divided into 3 main groups. These 3 groups belong to the 3 most powerful Fiend Kings of the Wraith Realm. The Blood Demon Duke, the Holy Pure Priestess, the Lord of Total Distortion. The last time Gu Qingshan came to the Wraith Realm, she attracted the attention of the 3 Fiend Kings because she fused too many fragments of the Wraith Realm. As her pursuers approached the Wraith Realm, Gu Qingshan conveniently offered the fused Wraith Realm to the Blood Demon Duke and escaped. After all, the Xieqi Fiend Realm was originally within the Blood Demon Duke's sphere of influence. But this time was different. I only have 1 day, so I have to think of a way to delay the Earth Sword's death. The Blood Demon Duke worshipped violence and offensive techniques. He didn't specialize in temporal, sealing, or life-related abilities. The Holy Pure Priestess wasn't good either. She forced everyone to call her holy or pure, but in truth, all she had were charm and sacrificial techniques. Even the Blood Demon Duke of the previous generation was charmed by her in battle, and became a ghost under her skirt. Gu Qingshan suspected that the fiendess was also her disciple. Even the holy pure priestess power couldn't save the earth sword. And so, Gu Qingshan's gaze turned towards a faraway ocean, the chaos demonic sea. This was the Lord of Total Distortion's sphere of influence. This fiend king had many mystic-type abilities and was the most eerie existence among the several thousand wraith realms. Under normal circumstances, even the holy pure priestess wouldn't want to provoke this fiend king. From the fiend king's several 10,000 years of fighting, he didn't have any mystic-type abilities that could delay the Earth Sword's life either. But this ocean was Gu Qingshan's only hope, because the Lord of Total Distortion had clearly stated that only evil creatures with mystic-type abilities could move about within the chaos demonic sea. Time, fate, life, destruction, and alteration, all of these were related to mysticism. In other words, only the chaos demonic sea had unique evil creatures that might have a mystic-type ability to slow time. Gu Qingshan quickly thought about it. He didn't want to waste even a single minute right now. If I really want to go to the chaos demonic sea, I must have mystic-type abilities. Without the War God UI, I can't use Starflame War God title skill. War God skills, and War God title can't be used anymore, only the thaumaturgies that I've already grasped and fused with me can be used. Does Dream Jolt count as a mystic-type ability? What about Shadow Shift? In the end, in a place like the Chaos Demonic Sea, the one that most resembles a mystic-type ability is. Gu Qingshan looked at the Chao Yin sword that was hovering next to him. He told the Chao Yin sword, "The Earth Sword won't let me save it," saying that I would fall and fall because of this. What do you think? Oh. The Chao Yin sword let out a sorrowful cry. Gu Qingshan nodded. That's right, it's about to die, yet it's still running out to spout such nonsense. In truth, which evil creature is more vicious than I am? The reason why the evil creatures are with me is because they want to be on guard against themselves falling. Don't you think so? Xiao. The Chao Yin sword understood what he meant and hurriedly tapped its hilt, letting out a whistling sound. You also agree with me? Very well. Gu Qingshan pointed at the ocean on the map and said, "This is the Chaos Demonic Sea. Where there's an ocean, I need you to fight alongside me. Let's find a way to save the Earth Sword. What do you say?" Chapter 876. The Rusty Stain Bar. This was a bar that sat at the edge of the Chaos Demonic Sea. The Lord of Total Distortion had cast Shelter of the Sea, Affinity of the Sea, Child of the Sea, and several other mystic-type techniques on this place, so this place wouldn't be attacked by demonic sea creatures. Demonic sea creatures. At the bottom of the ocean, there were ancient demonic sea creatures that had lived for over 100 million years. After going through the baptism of time, their bodies had become terrifying weapons, not to mention their strength. When the divine race and desolate race split the primordial wraith realm, they also felt that this place was too troublesome, so they purposely avoided this vast ocean. At this point, the storm above the ocean was becoming more and more intense. The sky was dark. The evil creatures obediently stayed inside the bar, listening to the earth-shattering roar coming from the ocean outside. A fiery fiend muttered, "The power fluctuations this time are a bit strong. I bet that monster has lived for at least 6 million years." Another fiend followed up. No, this voice appeared once 30 years ago. At the time, the owner of the bar said that this big guy was still in his infancy, probably only about 2 million years old. The flame fiend replied, "All right, who cares how long it has lived? Every time I come here, I always feel very dejected." Why? "Because you know that you will never be able to eat their flesh," another fiend chimed in. "That's true, the mother of that monster just now had lived for 50 million years, she loves to eat us the most. I bet you don't want to see her." Another drunken devil mocked. "So why are you trash still lingering here and not leaving?" It was so strong that none of the other fiends dared to say anything. Only the bartender continued, There are too many opportunities in the demonic sea. Our master welcomes all who wish to explore. Also, you've drunk too much. Please be careful not to cause any trouble in the bar. Hearing the bartender's words, the fiend seemed to have realized something and went silent. It lowered its head, minding its own business and drinking alone, no longer mocking others. Bam! At this point, the door of the bar was opened. Amidst the howling storm, a handsome demon walked into the bar. His entire body was clean, not a single part of his body was wet from the rain. This fiend was very unfamiliar, so he immediately attracted the attention of some of the fiends who had been living here for a long time. The seawater of the chaotic demonic sea was filled with all sorts of violent energies. It was not something that could be dealt with by ordinary water manipulation abilities. This could only be achieved by directly communicating with the ocean. It seemed that this demon's ability was related to the sea. Everyone secretly pondered. The devil went straight to the bar counter. "What would you like to drink?" the bartender asked. "Thank you, but no need," Gu Qingshan said. "You came to the bar to avoid the storm. If you don't drink, the boss won't be happy," the bartender said straightforwardly. "Although I don't drink, I have a deal to discuss," Gu Qingshan said. The bartender smiled and said, "Oh? I see. This is understandable. May I know your identity?" "The Xieqi Fiend King," Gu Qingshan answered. The bartender looked at Gu Qingshan, seemingly lost in his memories. "The Xieqi Fiend King? Let me take a look at today's news. I got it, he just killed 2 demon kings from the demon world. His appearance and race type are also correct. TSK, his strength is also very outstanding." The fiends and devils who were listening on the side quickly looked away. A powerful fiend and devil that had 2 demon realms under his command. This guy wasn't a newbie, so he wasn't worth messing with. Another bartender said, "If there's no problem, then give him the Lord class treatment. That's right, since you have 2 demon realms under your command, you are qualified to receive Lord class treatment." "Thank you," Gu Qingshan said. He casually tossed a few magic diamonds on the bar counter. Magic diamonds were hard currency. Whether it was used for forging, embedding, casting, trading, or hoarding, they could all be used. Seeing these magic diamonds, the bartender's smile became even brighter. A lord of the demon world who was generous with money. Such a person would be welcomed no matter where he went. The bartender asked, "I'm sorry, but I have to ask you one last question. Do you have a mystic type ability?" "Of course, I know your master's rules, and I'm willing to abide by them. After all, I'm here to do business," Gu Qingshan calmly replied. The bartender nodded, his impression of her improved. The other party had already done enough research on this place, doesn't seem to have any violent tendencies, and doesn't seem to have any bad intentions. There are simply too few fiend and devil lords like that. The bartender replied. "Then there's no problem. On behalf of my master, I welcome you to the Chaos Demonic Sea." He came out from behind the bar counter and personally led Gu Qingshan to a small, dark door at the back of the bar. "Please follow me." The bartender lightly knocked on the door a few times and gestured to Gu Qingshan. "Very well," Gu Qingshan replied. The two of them entered the door. The dim light suddenly brightened. Gu Qingshan found herself standing in a large square. The square was completely paved with bricks, the roads were clean, sturdy, and wide. At the end of the square was a grand cathedral that reached the sky. Arg! Various screams could be heard from the outer walls of the cathedral. As Gu Qingshan looked around, she saw that the outer walls of the cathedral were filled with corpses, some of which had already lost their flesh and blood, leaving only bones behind. Even so, the bones were still struggling to leave the outer walls of the cathedral. On the outer walls of the cathedral, molten lava continuously flowed without stopping. "Is this your first time here?" The bartender noticed Gu Qingshan's gaze and asked. "That's right," Gu Qingshan replied. Perhaps it was because the magic diamonds had taken effect, the bartender patiently explained. It took quite a bit of effort to fish this cathedral out from the depths of the sea, and these fishers still haven't died even now, he shrugged and continued. The master also spent a lot of effort to make these loyal fishers fall into eternal slumber, but this cathedral was too interesting. The living beings that were glued to the outer walls all became a part of it, unable to rest in peace for the rest of their lives, and then? Gu Qingshan asked. And then, the master felt that this wasn't too bad, the bartender replied. Is this really an ancient structure that was buried deep under the sea? Gu Qingshan asked with interest. Indeed, it's quite a good antique. The master has been studying it for the last few hundred years, the bartender replied. Gu Qingshan nodded, expressing that she understood. The master of the Rusty Stain Bar was the Lord of Total Distortion. As everyone knew, he loved to excavate ancient artifacts from the depths of the demonic sea. At this point, a horse carriage arrived from the other side of the square and stopped in front of Gu Qingshan and the bartender. The bartender opened the door and said, "Please get in, Sir Ruler, you will be heading to the cathedral to complete your business." "Very well, thank you very much. I'll treat you to a drink when I return," Gu Qingshan replied. The bartender laughed, revealing a mouth full of sharp teeth. "Sir Lord, you are indeed a very forthright customer. Let me give you one last piece of advice. Please go ahead. The master's rule is to be fair, but the cathedral also has its own rule, which is to not tell lies. As long as you can do these two things, you won't have to worry about becoming a decoration on the cathedral's outer walls." "Thank you." The horse carriage started to move and brought Gu Qingshan towards the cathedral. The carriage was pulled by 6 black-scaled seahorses, but there was no coachman. Fortunately, the seahorses seemed to have gotten used to this route, so the carriage was also very spacious and comfortable, so there weren't any bumps along the way. Gu Qingshan sat on the horse carriage, silently thinking about the bartender's advice. A place of business, without the principle of fairness, would not be able to thrive. So the Lord of Total Distortion wasn't wrong about this. As for the cathedral, Gu Qingshan was very sure that the evil creatures that followed the Lord of Total Distortion into the sea abyss were all experts. Otherwise, the Lord of Total Distortion wouldn't have brought them along. But now they couldn't die, nor could they live. They had become a part of the cathedral, enduring eternal torment. Not telling lies for evil creatures, this is a special kind of torture, Gu Qingshan chuckled, but her expression was a bit helpless. Indeed, this was also a hindrance for him. Time quickly passed. The horse carriage stopped right in front of the cathedral. A middle-aged man who appeared to be a smart and capable man opened the carriage door for Gu Qingshan. "Sir Xieqi Ruler, I am a first-class trader of the Chaos Demonic Sea Exploration Association, at your service," the middle-aged man politely spoke. "Then I'll have to trouble you. I need to issue a mission as soon as possible," Gu Qingshan said. The middle-aged man replied, "I'll make it clear first, for every mission, transaction, treasure hunting, or battle, the master will take 30% of the reward." "I understand," Gu Qingshan replied. "Then there is no problem," the middle-aged man smiled. "Sir Ruler, this way please, I will lead you to the mission hall. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.